Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider presented by FanDuel. Matthew Coller here, and this is the night that you've all been waiting for, the Purple Insider show, when I reveal my latest NFC Power rankings. I spent some time working on it, and I've got my list, and I have absolutely no confidence in it, so I'm very curious to see what you guys think of the new list. I did one before the draft, now after the draft, and I'm going to keep doing them and try to have as much fun as I can and see how it ends up playing out, because we've never done power rankings before on the show. So I decided now is a good time to do it, but mostly focus just on the National Football Conference, which is the most relevant to the Minnesota Vikings. Also, Adrian Peterson, Ring of Honor, the Vikings add a UDFA, and I've had some additional thoughts about the general manager search that I wanted to toss out there, but also you guys, anything on the table. It is May 11th. If you've got football questions, Vikings questions, NFL questions, whatever you guys want to talk about, we can. The Minnesota Wild playing a little bit. I will probably, maybe go a little bit past that depending on how many questions we get in the comment section. But, plenty of time here leading up to the game to have a good discussion about football. So why don't we begin with the NFC Power Rankings? I'll take you through my thought process for each one, why I could be right, why I could be wrong, and we'll get reactions to that. Then we'll go from there. So here we go. All right, here is the new list. It begins out the same as the last list and probably the same as every one that I will do for this entire offseason, which is the Los Angeles Rams #1. They have the MVP quarterback. They have still a group of weapons, the best coach possibly in the entire National Football League, a stacked defense, which they stacked up even more with their defensive backs. I am not going to penalize the Los Angeles Rams for not spending a draft pick on, say, like Mekhi Lemon or somebody else in the first round, because I don't think that anybody else via the draft surpassed the Los Angeles Rams. But I do think they may have missed out on an opportunity for a win now type of play in order to draft Ty Simpson. I have no idea how the Ty Simpson thing is going to work out. I didn't view him as a first round draft pick. I did not view him the same as somebody like Jordan Love. So, just Jordan Love, for example, is what? 6'4", 230 pounds with a huge arm. It looked to me like he was the type of franchise quarterback athlete when the Green Bay Packers drafted him. I was shocked even when the Packers did it and didn't draft a wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers, but at least it made sense as a developmental prospect. I'm not sure Ty Simpson makes as much sense. Still, the Rams, top to bottom, best roster in the National Football League. I think even overall, including AFC teams, I just think they're the #1 team. So the Seattle Seahawks are next. They didn't lose a ton off of their team overall, and they did draft Jadarian Price, which I'm very interested to see. A guy who was not even an RB1 in college ends up now as an RB1 in the NFL. I don't know. We've seen that happen a couple of times. There was Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb was the example of that, where it was Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, and Chubb ends up going later than Michel and then turns out to be the better running back. I don't know if Jadarian Price could be better than Jeremiah Love, but he's certainly set up to have success. And I think the Seahawks probably view it as a run scheme and an offensive line thing that drove their success with Ken Walker. But they're rolling the dice for a team that wants to run first. Still, they didn't lose a lot. They're pretty stacked. They lost maybe a guy off of their secondary, but top to bottom, a team that is a lot of players in its prime, a lot of young players on rookie contracts. So the Seattle Seahawks, run it back, I think are the #2 team, because I think the Rams added enough in the secondary to be considered #1, but you can kind of flip-flop them either way. Now, here is the biggest difference from my last power ranking, and I was looking through and I was trying to find it, and I didn't put it in the headline the last time I did it, so I couldn't find my old list. So if anybody has it or remembers what I had in the first one, I'll do better in finding it next time, or keeping track of this one. Putting it in the headline is really the key. But the Philadelphia Eagles were a little down on my list last time not off the list, not way down, but more in the middle, because I thought, all right, they've got a good amount of drama there and a roster that is a little creaky. And it just feels like this might be the time that they're sliding a little toward the edge. And we knew that they were likely to trade A.J. Brown. So what are they going to do there, right? Good luck, Eagles, figuring this stuff out. Well, Howie Roseman strikes again, acquires Jonathan Grenard, who I think will probably have 11 sacks this year, considering who he's playing with. The fact they're going to have Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis in the middle, I think he's got a good chance for double-digit sacks. That is something that they did not have before and was my main issue with trading Jonathan Grenard. It wasn't so much that they traded him. It was that they traded him to a team that was a little bit down at that position, and that was the only position they were down at. And now you help them out, so they've got a double-digit sack potential guy that helps a lot. And if they are going to trade A.J. Brown, well, they drafted Mekhi Lemon, and no draft pick is a guarantee, but they also took Eli Stowers, so they loaded up on weapons to be able to make this move and then still be in good shape with their weapons. And wide receivers are one of the positions that tends to translate fairly quickly. Another thing that's pretty important here is the Eagles hired Sean Mannion, and I know that's a first-time offensive coordinator, but this is a guy who comes from the world of Gary Kubiak, when Mike Zimmer was here, and Kevin Stefanski, and then played for Kevin O'Connell. That's based in the Rams system, then goes to Green Bay with Matt LaFleur. Like, there's a really good lineage there. And I also have talked to Sean many times, and that is a really, really smart football guy who I think is going to have a much better plan for Jalen Hurts than they had last year, where they did not have a very good offensive coordinator at all. So I bumped the Philadelphia Eagles all the way up to number 3. I know that everyone would love them to fall off the side of the mountain. I just don't think that's going to happen this year. Number 4 is San Francisco. I slid them down a little bit. One, they lost Jauan Jennings to the Minnesota Vikings. They add Dazon Stribling, but I don't know how ready he's going to be. He looked more like a project to me and a lot of other people, which I think is why it was so shocking that they took him. The Brandon Ayuk situation seems like that is just completely gone. There's some age, situation there with just the entire team with George Kittle and Trent Williams. Oh, by the way, I should mention that later on the show, Kyle Madsen, who covers the San Francisco 49ers, will join the show to talk about Jauan Jennings. So you guys requested, hey, can you get a guest from San Francisco to talk about why the 49ers didn't re-sign Jauan Jennings? I have that coming up for you a little bit later. So the 49ers get benefit of the doubt. They're still a great team. They were still in the divisional round. Their quarterback kind of proved himself last year. And I think they will still be right there in the mix, but maybe just not quite as good as the Eagles. I just slid them down a little bit because I didn't think that they got as many impact players in the draft as I expected. Now, this is a little different. I've reordered the NFC North, and this might irritate some people, but I have put the Green Bay Packers at 5th in the power ranking. So we have Rams, Seahawks, Eagles, 49ers, and the Packers are 5th. And the reason the Packers are 5th is because they are not that volatile. That I have a very good sense. I did not feel like the Green Bay Packers made massive improvements anywhere. I didn't think that they drafted players that, wow, this is going to change all of Green Bay history right here. Next, Reggie White and Leroy Butler. No, I didn't think that. But I do think that they're as stable as it gets. And the most predictable, and Micah Parsons will come back, and they should be somewhere in that 10-11 win range. And I know that that is like, you're not really maybe picking the team with the highest potential upside, but I am picking the team that I feel pretty darn safe is going to be right there in the mix for the playoff race, has a good chance to win the division just by being the same Green Bay Packers under LaFleur as they've been for a number of years now. And I also think that if Jordan Love is healthy the entire time, if Micah Parsons comes back to 100%, they were 9-3-1 when Micah Parsons and Christian Watson got hurt. Matthew Golden could take another step. This is not to say that I have any confidence in what the NFC North is going to do, because all of these teams could win the division and they could all finish in 4th. But I think the Packers are the one that I feel the safest about predicting after free agency and the draft and the dust is settled. So I'm going to go 5 Green Bay Packers and 6 is Minnesota Vikings. Now there's 2 reasons for that. I mean, number 1, adding Jauan Jennings, I look around at this offense and go, it is complete around Kyler Murray. There is not, other than center, there's a question there, but at least we've seen Blake Brandel play pretty well. There are not really a lot of questions on this offense. Health is always going to be an issue for the offensive line, but they went out and they vastly improved their depth by getting Ryan Vandemark, drafting Caleb Tiernan. They, I think, have improved their run game with a new fullback and Damon Claiborne and Frank Smith, and also getting maybe an upgrade at the offensive line coach, which I think has been lacking there in the run game, specifically creativity and success there. And they kept it together where you have Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. It is a team full of veteran players on offense, a veteran quarterback coming in that I think has a better chance to succeed. And I wrote about this today at purpleinsider.football, if you want to check that out, that the Vikings have done everything you could possibly do to evaluate Kyler Murray, that they've given him all you could possibly give Murray now that they've signed Jauan Jennings. And yes, I did bump him up because I think that a lot of teams are about their weaknesses, and I felt like wide receiver depth was a weakness for the Vikings. Now I feel like they've solidified it with someone who is arguably a wide receiver 2 normally in the NFL. It's a big signing for me, and I've bumped the Vikings up to number 6. Another reason is, and I'll get to this with the Lions and Bears, I don't think that they did as much as I expected them to do this offseason, and now that we kind of have the full picture, there's a lot of meh there for me. But number 7, so the Vikings are 6. Number 7 on my NFC Power ranking list is the Washington Commanders of Washington. And this one may come across as bold, but I am expecting a big bounce back from Jayden Daniels. And if you look at the Commanders, they added Durante Jones on defense. They drafted Sonny Styles. They have been one of the most active teams. I believe they either signed or spent more money than anyone else in the entire NFL in free agency, which does not always correlate. But they've stocked up, they've made coaching improvements, they moved on from Cliff Kingsbury to bring in David Blau, and now Jayden Daniels is back healthy, and this team with Dan Quinn was in the NFC Championship 2 years ago, and I think that they are being forgotten about a little bit in the NFC discussion just because last year they weren't as good. They have all the signals to me of a team that bounces back. So they're 7th. I've got the Chicago Bears 8th, and I want to just stop here and reiterate how the power rankings work. You have to put them in order 1 through 16. But if I was doing a tiers list with this power ranking, it would still be the number 1 and 2 teams are in a clear number 1 and 2. I would actually have the 49ers, Eagles, probably in a like a 1A sort of tier. Like they're not quite those teams, but I think that they're very legit. And then from number 5 to about number 9 or 10, it's very, very close. You could see any possible order. So I do want to make that clear. But I've got the Commanders 7th. The Bears are 8th. I just thought the Bears would get a pass rush. I would have thought that going into this offseason, the number 1 thing on the Chicago Bears' mind would be go get pass rushers. They did not do it. They drafted Dylan Thieneman, who I think is good, but they had Kevin Byard last year getting picks left and right, and Nashawn Wright getting picks left and right. I don't know if they can repeat that with their defense. So if they don't get interceptions all over the place next year and lead the league in turnovers again, they're just going to be a bad defense. I was looking over their depth chart going, they didn't improve at all here. So their offense then has to be that much better. Caleb Williams can get more accurate, but I don't know that it can be insanely more accurate right from the jump. I think their offense can still be really, really good overall, but they did lose an extra wide receiver in DJ Moore. They also surprisingly did not get a big running back addition, which was another thing that I fully expected the Chicago Bears to do, which was try to make a massive improvement, take a big jump at the running back position. They really didn't. So some of their weaknesses that got them last year, and then they finished every game with a last second field goal, last second crazy throw, whatever. There's regression possibilities there all over with the Chicago Bears, but there's also the chance that year 2 of Ben Johnson's offense, Caleb Williams just takes a big old step forward and the NFC is in lots of trouble because we saw it last year. He is that talented. Number 9, I have the Detroit Lions. Now, if you were watching a few weeks ago, you probably would say, wait a minute, didn't you have the Detroit Lions as the number 1 team in the NFC North and now you have them as 4th? Yes, welcome to the NFC North, everyone, because the Lions similarly just did not improve very much in the offseason. I did also expect them to try to take a big swing, to go trade for a Max Crosby, to really shock us, and they didn't. And, I think that Blake Miller, their draft pick, is going to be ultimately a pretty solid player. I liked his draft profile. I thought, hey, if the Vikings are looking for a Brian O'Neill replacement, this guy kind of has some similar markers to his game. He's very athletic. But right away, I'm not sure. And their replacement at center, I'm not sure. And their replacement at offensive coordinator, I like him much more than what they had last year. That's Drew Petzing instead of John Morton, but I'm not so sure. So I could see the Lions being just a very similar team. They didn't make huge improvements in the secondary either. They lost some players. I don't know. They lost DJ Reader. It has the possibility of you guys just missed your window. And if you get 1 or 2 players hurt, you're not the same anymore. Or if Goff last year was phenomenal and they missed the playoffs. And I just don't feel like they got that much better. So they have dropped to number 9 because the last time we did this, some of it was projecting still on what are they going to do? I think the Vikings may have not signed Kyler Murray yet. I don't remember when I did the last one, but some of it was, I think they're going to do this. I think they're going to make a trade. I think they're going to have a big game-changing draft pick, and it just didn't really happen. Number 10 is the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I could see the Dallas Cowboys because they're getting rid of Matt Eberflus, which is a winning model, and they added a lot of talent on defense. Now, it wasn't crazy. It wasn't like they went wild in free agency, and I think Cowboys fans were frustrated that they didn't do more, but they added in the draft a bunch of talent. Malachi Lawrence and Caleb Downs could be excellent for them right away, especially Caleb Downs, and I think they've moved on from some of the guys that were dragging them down. Doesn't mean they're going to be incredible on defense, but they might be serviceable with a new defensive coordinator, and nobody knows how much a new defensive coordinator matters as much as the Minnesota Vikings, where they didn't improve that much from 2022 to 2023 roster-wise, but the D was way better, and I could see that in Big D in Dallas with a new defensive coordinator making a big difference, so I see them as a playoff contender. I have the Carolina Panthers as the best team in the NFC South, as the 11th best in the NFC overall, and I'm going to roll with that. I just don't have a lot of respect for the NFC South. At all of these teams, they've got some stuff to like. They've got some players to like. I think New Orleans made a big jump. I've got them at number 12. Carolina spent some of the most money in the NFL. They are actually, I think, at the very bottom of the league in terms of cap space, because they spent a ton in free agency. I thought, drafted some very interesting players. Lee Hunter was one of them. Chris Brazzell was one of them. But still, I don't see them being in the same ballpark as some of these more proven teams with Bryce Young at quarterback. And the Saints, I think Tyler Shuck is a wild card, very much a wild card in the NFC. If Shuck takes some huge step and is absolutely amazing, well, then great. They're going to be the winners of that division because they have a pretty solid roster elsewhere, and they added Travis Etienne to the backfield, and they added Jordan Tyson at wide receiver. So they are, I think, improving, and I think they're doing it the right way. Kellen Moore impresses me as a coach. He got a lot out of Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck last year. I just don't think they're there yet. Shuck needs to be really good. They need to take one more step. Number 13 is the Giants, another team that I believe will be much, much better than they were last year, but it's really hard to say that they can play with the Philadelphia Eagles, even Washington at this point. They have talent, and they've drafted high a lot, and they got 2 more high draft picks. I feel like the Giants will be the team to watch in 2027 to take like a big step forward. Maybe the Eagles start to slide back. Maybe the Cowboys, Dak's getting older. They slide back after that from being in the middle to bad. I don't know, but the Giants have all the bones and the foundation of a team that is tanked accidentally for a long time And now they've got all these draft picks that have built up over the years. They have to find out if Jackson Dart can play, and they have to rebuild their defense after last year was a total debacle defensively. They should be much more competitive. I'm just not sure that they are competitive enough to get more than maybe 7 wins as a really young team. And then next year, if it all comes together, if Jackson Dart takes another big step, then they could be better. But for now, not getting the benefit of the doubt. I am very low on Tampa Bay. I think that they had one of the worst off seasons of any team in the entire NFL. I've got them at being 14th, the Falcons 15th, who may have matched that for having some of the worst off season in the league. They're going to do the Tua thing. Maybe Penix comes back at some point. Zero confidence in the Atlanta Falcons being a good team, and Arizona at 16 is the team that really desperately wants to rank number 16th. So in the comments, your reactions, where am I right? Where am I wrong? That's what I want from you in the comment section. I'll get back to you guys on that in just a couple minutes. But that's what I want to know. Right or wrong? Where am I right or wrong about the Vikings being number 6? Am I right or wrong about where any other team in the NFC North is? Agree, disagree? Tell me how you feel. The biggest news in Vikings land today was that Adrian Peterson will be named to the Ring of Honor in one of the least shocking developments in the history of the National Football League. He will be eligible for the Hall of Fame next year, and he will go into the Hall of Fame easily in his first time. And if he doesn't, then it is a travesty. Well, Adrian Peterson, I think in Minnesota specifically, is going to always be a person that when his name comes up, there's debates and there's conversations, and there were things along the way that were not happy events regarding Adrian Peterson. And, you know, I don't have to go into all the details of that. You guys know it. You guys lived it. But if we are judging Adrian Peterson on the highs of his career, they're as high as any player who's ever existed at the position in the entire NFL. His 2007 season is iconic. His longevity is shocking. I mean, when you actually go through how few running backs get into their 30s and succeed, it's unbelievable how Adrian not only did it for the Vikings in 2015 to get up to the top of the NFL in rushing, but then after the injury in 2016, then he comes back in 2017. It doesn't work out with the Saints, and he still has some effective years after that where he's averaging 4+ yards per carry, but at his height, as good as it's ever been. And, you know, when I first got here, I'll tell you this, 2016, I first arrived, and I was like, this is kind of crazy. Like Adrian Peterson, the way that he's continued to perform at this level is nuts. And I was very surprised, because I was doing radio back then, at the amount of debate that existed around Adrian Peterson. I kind of assumed that all fans would just have been behind him. And I know that when child abuse is involved, that's a different conversation. That's a different amount of emotion that goes into it. But my assumption was that everyone had sort of moved on by then, and that Adrian was the hero and that was it. And I was kind of wrong about that, because people, when I got here, really wanted to fight about Adrian Peterson, that, you know, some didn't feel like he was a complete enough all-around back, receiving, blocking. There's the fumbles in the game against New Orleans in the NFC Championship. So with Adrian, it's always been, I would just say, a little bit on the complicated side. But in terms of the success of the player, in terms of how much he deserves to be in the Ring of Honor, I mean, you just can't really reach much higher highs than that. You have your Randy Moss and your Carl Eller and your Alan Page. I mean, those are the guys who are just untouchable in Vikings history. And right below that is Adrian Peterson. So congratulations to him. If you haven't gotten a chance to see the video, it's very cool because John Randall is involved, and John Randall's genuine joy is just so great. So great to see. And one more news item for you. The Vikings signed another tryout player. And this is linebacker Bengali Kamara, who is from Kansas. He, you're not going to believe this, was a multiple player on defense, played on the D-line as a pass rusher, played in the box as a linebacker. I know, stunning stuff. had a good number of quarterback pressures, graded very high by PFF as a pass rusher, and also made a lot of run stops as well. But he did have one downside this year when playing for Kansas, which is that he missed a ton of tackles. 31% missed tackle percentage, which usually says, well, sometimes it means a guy can't tackle, but sometimes it means that he was in the backfield a lot and was missing the tackle and not finishing plays. But this is somebody you're signing off of a tryout, so there's going to be something that you don't exactly love. He did play a lot at Pitt, spent a little time at South Carolina, and then on to Kansas because it's college football now, and that's how it works. So a well-traveled player here, Bengali Kamara, who will be one to watch. These players make it sometimes. That's why we pointed out is that sometimes these guys who are the tryout players, they stand out, the coaches fall in love with them, and then they end up on special teams or they end up playing a role and surprising us like Elijah Williams did last year or Chad Beebe in the past or whoever else. That one guy who wore 19, forget what his name was, but there's been some good stories over the years of tryout players, so we will track Bengali Kamara along with everyone else. And that means the Vikings roster is at 90, by the way, if you are keeping your spreadsheets at home. Okay, so let's get into your thoughts, the power rankings. If you want to have a discussion about Adrian Peterson, just a little quick reminder that on Thursday, the schedule is going to come out, and immediately after it comes out, we're going to go live. Me and Manny breaking down every single game. Manny will pick the schedule. I will pick the schedule. We'll come out with our final records that we officially think the Vikings are going to end up with, and then we'll go from there. I was going to mention a FanDuel question of the day. The Philadelphia Eagles are plus 950 to win the NFC, and I just put them as the third best team in the NFC. How do you feel about the Eagles after they acquired Jonathan Grenard? You scared of the Eagles? You confident they're going to fall off or not be that good? Where do we stand with them after now they have Jonathan Grenard? Because I bumped them up, and they drafted Mekhi Lemon. I bumped them up, and we'll see what happens with the A.J. Brown situation. Okay, let's get into the fan chat. Skull Shadow says, I can't say I've ever understood power rankings. It's really all about the records of the teams at the end. Well, so the idea with the power rankings is we're not going to know what the Philadelphia Eagles or Minnesota Vikings record is until January. So until then, in fact, they don't even kick off a football until September. So that is May right now. It's a way of framing a conversation is really what power rankings are. And the conversation is who's good in the NFC and who is bad in the NFC and who is mid in the NFC, right? That's the real discussion is it sort of dives in to the fundamental, how do we really feel about these teams? That's what the power ranking is. It's a jumping off point to have a conversation about all the teams that are playing football. And I get a little bit, power rank. Here we go with power rankings again. It's just in the season. I actually think that they're a lot of fun in the off season, but in the season, it ends up being the standings most of the time. So that I'm not in love with, but that's kind of the point. That's why we're doing it right here. The Vikings made a big signing in Jauan Jennings. Their draft is over. Where do we think they stand? And I had them at 6th, but I could be talked into different ways of looking at that. Jay, what rookie impressed me the most at rookie minicamp? I did mention the other day that it's not the most aggressive practice. I should have just said, Bengali Kamara was the guy. I knew it all along. I could see it from the sideline that I couldn't actually. Damon Claiborne was the guy that stood out to me the most, actually. That I would say him, his movement skill, his quickness, his speed, that jumped out to me by far the most, but it's not a full practice. It's not, think about how many training camp practices we get to see, and we still end up wrong about players sometimes. This is one mini camp workout where they're judging how well they do drills and stuff. So it's a little bit tricky. Marcus Sanders was another guy. Wait, I have my list here from Georgia State. Was it Sanders? Yeah, Marcus Sanders Jr. also kind of popped out to me as a UDFA this year from Georgia Southern, and Marcus Allen from North Carolina. Those were the undrafted free agents that kind of popped out. But there's not a whole lot you could see. Like Dominique Orange is just doing drills. Like, wow, man, he's big. So Joker says Lions are 9th, but you still have them as the best chance to win in the North. That 4th place schedule is a joke. Yeah, so that's an interesting thing about the power ranking, right? What is the real goal? Is it to say who I think is really that strong or what I think their record will be? It's not a record prediction. They could be my 4th team and actually end up with a better record than somebody else, right? And because exactly what you're saying, their schedule and strength of schedule. I saw the NFL put out a graphic of like, here's the strength of schedule rank. It's not. It's really, truly not. What teams' records were last year don't make a whole heck of a lot of difference because there's always worst to first all the time. And I did this last year where I tried 3 different methods of strength of schedule. I tried one where NFL.com just eyeballed it and they did it for years going back. I did one where it was we're going to use the markets. That's the way to do it. That wasn't correlating very well. And then I did the last year's and that wasn't correlating very well. But I do think that the Lions playing the 4th place schedule, there is history in that because we discussed that when the Vikings beat them on Christmas Day, that there is history. If you get that 4th place schedule, it does help you a lot. So I could see an outcome where I still don't think the Lions are all that great when we get to the end of the day. And they're still 4th in the NFC North in my power rankings, but they have the 2nd best record. It's really, here's how I look at it, is a power ranking should be the Super Bowl. It should be, does your team have a chance to win a Super Bowl? You're all competing for one prize or the NFC Championship, just for example. Like it's the top of the conference. If we're answering the question with every single team, more of who do I think I could see making the NFC Championship? I'm just not sure I could put the Lions there. I just don't think that they have enough on defense or that they made enough improvements anywhere, especially on the offensive line. They're going to move a tackle and then they're going to play a rookie tackle. And then they signed a center who's just kind of a guy. Like that is not inspiring. And their pass rush is not inspiring. And their secondary still has its issues, especially with injuries. So I think that the 4th place schedule might bump them up and they might actually not be as good. So but I'm glad you said that because they do have the best odds on FanDuel to win the division right now. And I think that schedule plays into it. Yes, Jay, just to be clear, the power ranking is for me. Yeah, that's a new thing that I'm trying. I want to keep going back to it, like doing it now, pulling it back out in like a few weeks or having somebody else comment on a new one or something like that based on whatever changes, training camp. We'll do stuff like that. Hans has will one objective NFL media member pick the Vikings anywhere but last in the North? Oh, that's a great question because they're going into the draft. They were plus 550 on FanDuel to win the division. Now they're plus 600. So ever so slightly less confidence in them somehow after the draft. Maybe it's because they didn't get a player that would move the needle, but then they did after, and that didn't change anything. So I don't know. But to your point, no, I do not think that we will see anyone seriously pick the Vikings to win the division. I go back to 2024 with that, and did a lot of people pick the Vikings to win the division? No. In fact, they were mostly ranked as being terrible. Most people had them as like the 27th best team in the entire league. Most of them had losing the division by a mile and didn't factor enough what the free agency would mean. And I feel like that's going to happen here, that the other 3 teams just feel safer. You feel safer because the Lions have had some consistent success. You feel safer with the Bears because they match one of those teams that just gets better and better. It doesn't always work that way, but that's how it works that way in like the national media mind. I mean, there's so many national media people, by the way. It's like hundreds of them. So, I don't know, like who thinks in what way, but it really feels like this is kind of how if you go year to year, if a team is pretty young or has a young quarterback and they succeed, then the very next year, everyone will just say they're the best. And that's Washington. Last year, everybody had Washington, and I probably did too. All the way at the top of the division, they're the best. Watch out for them. They're going to take over the league, et cetera, et cetera. They got Deebo Samuel. They traded for Laramie Tunsil, and it didn't work out that way. Now, Chicago has a quarterback that if he takes another step, the guy can be an absolute monster. He can be like the Josh Allen step that everybody talks about all the time. He's got that in him. So yeah, there's a lot of, I think, expectation that he does take that next step. But if Caleb Williams is exactly the same quarterback, they do not have as much success because those takeaways on defense were ludicrous. The number of interceptions that they had, many against the Vikings, but the number of picks they had alone, the number of late games that they won, they blocked a field goal to win a game. They threw a Hail Mary to win a game. Like all this different stuff happened that is going to be hard for them to repeat. And, you know, their defensive coordinator didn't really move me too much last year, Dennis Allen, and then they didn't give him more to work with. Dylan Thieneman just replaces guys who are already playing super well at that position. And he might be good right away, but Byard had a bunch of interceptions. So you're asking him to like hold up this defense that was very vulnerable last year. And I'm completely shocked that they didn't find any real extra help on the defensive line. So they have regression written all over them. Now the Packers, they are well coached by Matt LaFleur. And I know every time I bring a Packers person on here, they just want to slap him in the mouth or whatever, but he's good every single year. I think Love actually was better last year than before, but then had the issues at wide receiver. Micah Parsons is going to come back. They're going to be a good team. They almost always are. But I don't think anybody will make the jump to say Kyler Murray's good, because I also think that when it comes to trying to cover 32 teams, and I don't blame anybody for this, but I think perception just rules the day. Groupthink and perception. We see the same people. The draft is like this too. We see it's a lot of follow the leader. It's a lot of, well, my perception is that Kyler Murray is not a good quarterback and has not been a good quarterback. I mean, some people would tell you that he hasn't been a good quarterback since 2021. Those people are wrong, because 2024 he was, but no one cared. And if you're covering 32 teams, I don't know how much you care about how good Kyler Murray was in 2024. Or did you watch the first 5 games of last season where they easily could have beat San Francisco if somebody who was drafted very highly could catch a football? Or right? They're not going to do that. They're making their power rankings and firing it up. And I don't think that they're looking anywhere past whatever their most recent perception on Kyler Murray is. So, or just even looking into how freaking awful that franchise is in Arizona. But that's not how it works. It's like, have you won and are you, this went this way with Sam Darnold. Have you won and are you awesome right now? Most recently, last year? No, then you suck. Like that's pretty much how it goes. So I'll be interested to see if there is anyone that's a little bold when it comes to that. If someone does say, hey, can you look at this Vikings offense? It is way better than anything Kyler has ever had before. And also his coaching is way better. You might not love KOC. You might think that he's not a good play caller. And okay, there's definitely some points to be made. But you can't tell me he's not better than Cliff Kingsbury or Jonathan Gannon. You can't tell me that. So I don't know. But I think to your question, I do not think anyone will pick them to win the division. And, you know, as I said, that the last couple times they've won it, no one picked them to win the division either. Joker, Green Bay is tough because by far their best players on offense and defense are coming off of midseason ACL tears. There's no greatness. If there's no greatness there, if Parsons and Kraft aren't being difference makers. I mean, that's absolutely true. I 100% agree with you. I never know what to do with that when it comes to how's a guy going to return from an ACL injury. I mean, Dalvin Cook was amazing coming back from his ACL. TJ Hawkinson obviously struggled more, and so did Christian Darrisaw. But it just can't be ignored that last year they literally lost their 2 best players in the middle of the year, and that was a major part of their fall off. but Tucker Kraft became a star at the middle of last season. I also think Jacobs was playing really banged up, and they didn't make as much of noise as I thought they would on the O-line. That I believed that they were going to make a big push, and they didn't really. But I mean, Micah Parsons is just on such a different level that if he comes back strong and if Kraft comes back strong, they can win the division. I don't think there's any doubt about that. This ranking is hilarious, John says. Well, that's good, but feel free to tell me why. Purple Purgatory says by week 4, the Vikings will be top 5. Top 5 in the NFC for the Vikings would not surprise me very much at all. If by the first 4 weeks of the season, everyone said, oh, right, Justin Jefferson. I mean, if Jefferson by the first 4 weeks of the season had, 600 yards, would you be surprised? I mean, Kyler has his shortcomings, but his shortcoming is not throwing to the best receiver on the team. We've seen that. I ran through the data on that just showed I don't think you could call Marvin Harrison the best receiver on the team, but it was Michael Wilson was the only one that he had kind of struggled throwing to good wide receivers. Trey McBride was their number 1 receiver, and he was great throwing to him. He was great throwing to DeAndre Hopkins. So I think with the connection here and the fact that they do have 3 wide receivers, the expectation should be pretty high, and it wouldn't surprise me, depending on how the schedule plays out, if they were quickly a team where everyone said, oh, we need to put them much higher in our power rankings. JP says, just saw the other day there's a supplemental draft this summer. Any thoughts on whether the Vikings have a shot at any interesting prospects? So the supplemental draft, I have not seen anything official on the supplemental draft, JP, that they're actually going to do it. So the only reason that they would do it would be for Brandon Sorsby. Brandon Sorsby, if you haven't been following, the Cincinnati quarterback who was discovered to have been gambling on his own team when he was at Indiana and also gambling on a bunch of other crazy stuff. But I think it's the Indiana part that is likely to get him suspended for the entire year. So what you can do in college is if you've missed the draft but then change your mind, you can enter the supplemental draft. So every team gets a shot at picking you, and I believe how it works. And the reason I say I believe, and you'll have to look up the official rules here, is it almost never happens. Not anymore. Back in the day, it used to happen, but it does not happen anymore. There was a USFL back in the day, etc. Like, it doesn't happen anymore. Bernie Kosar could have become the Vikings quarterback, by the way. If you go look up that story, there was a supplemental draft when Bernie Kosar came out, and, yada, yada. So if somebody, if Sorsby decides I'm going to be suspended for all of next year in college football, I should come out in the NFL, he can enter the supplemental draft, and someone can use a draft pick that would cost them for the next year. So if you used a second round draft pick, you don't get a second round draft pick for the next year. You're essentially using your next year's pick. I think this is how it works. I don't believe they've even done one since 2019. And, if someone is interested in Sorsby and thinks that he could be a franchise quarterback, then they will use a supplemental pick on him. I am not convinced that this is actually going to happen. I don't think he's that good. For one, he's been talked up, but I saw him play a few times, didn't really see it. Seems like the reviews are kind of mixed. The other thing is, too, the guy was gambling on his own team. Are you sure that you want to bring him into your team right now without any proof that that's going to change with that behavior? So I'm not fully convinced, but it's really the whole supplemental draft thing is entirely about him. Vikings draft brain. The Vikings should be 4th in the NFC and likely in the 10 to 16 range. This is too much purple Kool-Aid to assume that Kyler is going to click. When he lost his job to Brissett is a concern. So he did not lose his job to Brissett. He was benched so they could tank. That's what happened. My understanding is from talking to enough people in Arizona that Jonathan Gannon wanted him to return to the starting lineup, and he was not allowed to have him return to the starting lineup because they kept losing games with Jacoby Brissett, and they were trying to get the number 3 overall draft pick, which they did. And they still are, by the way. If you watch their offseason, they still are trying to get another high draft pick. So, no, he is not worse than Jacoby Brissett. But Kyler, though, I think it is more confidence. Now, I put him sixth. Okay. So purple Kool-Aid, and I said that the difference between number 5 and number 10 is very, very small. So if I have him at 6 and you have him at 10, that we're actually not that different from where we think that they should be. I think that it's very squished in the middle with the NFC. But the reason I have them at, and they shouldn't be in the 16 range, because then you're saying that they're going to be worse than the Arizona Cardinals when they won 9 games last year with some of the worst quarterback play in the league. I think the reason that I have more confidence in the Kyler thing working than other people is that I've done a lot of work on it. I mean, I've watched a lot of games for Kyler Murray, and I've looked at a lot of data, and I've talked to a lot of people. And all I keep coming back to is this should work. That doesn't mean I put them number 1. It doesn't mean I put them over the Rams. It doesn't mean I put them over the Seahawks or the 49ers or the Eagles or these teams that have proven to be the best of the best in the NFC over multiple years. But I do think that they're going to be a lot more in the mix than they're getting credit for by some folks. I also felt this way about Sam Darnold, and I believe I picked them to win 10 games in 2024, and that was 3.5 more games than Vegas expected, and they won 14. So it's not a matter of purple Kool-Aid, and we go over the shortcomings of this team and the question marks and the volatility, the center position, the offensive line health, Christian Darrisaw. They now have some young players on the defensive side. How are they going to hold up over an entire season? All those types of things. But if Kyler is healthy, this guy is incredibly accurate, a remarkable playmaker. The Vikings have a favorable schedule. They have more home games than away. Like there's a lot that I like there for this team to be able to get to 10 wins. So it's not, I mean, purple Kool-Aid would be if I put them like 3, which I didn't. Vikings draft brain, you know who else looked great at camp last year? He wore number 9. Yeah. Like, I get it. Look, last year, also, by the way, let's not rewrite history there, because there's shows that you can go back and watch of the ups and downs of JJ McCarthy. And I also didn't know, and neither did you, that he was going to get hurt in week 2, because the first night that he played, there was some promise there. But you know where it's really hard to improve and get consistent is when you get injured 4 different times during a season. It's very, very difficult to get into a groove, to lock into the offense, to make strides from a technical perspective. So if you had told me during training camp that McCarthy was going to get hurt in week 2 and miss 5 weeks, I would have said, oh, this is about to go bad. Because it took him half a training camp. And again, these are shows you can go back and watch. Go back and watch my recap of the night practice. It was horrible. So I don't think there was, I do remember saying, I don't think this is going to go awful. And it did, but I also didn't know he was going to get hurt in week 2. So we don't know just from training camp what's going to happen. If we did, it's kind of like the draft. If those draft analysts were really great at predicting the draft, it wouldn't be as fun. It wouldn't be as interesting if I could tell you in camp how good every team was going to be. But I do think that with JJ McCarthy, there's some context. Like, he did look good in practice. KOC and the other players said it quite a bit, but it's not games, and it's not playing through injuries and all those sorts of things. So Purple Purgatory is good with the top 10. Vikings draft brain, who's really on my butt here tonight, says, translation, Matthew Coller thinks that Murray has a better ability to carry the Vikings than Daniels, Goff, Williams, Prescott, even though neither KOC or Murray have playoff wins. See, when you say it like that, then you're putting a lot of words in my mouth that I didn't say. I think that the Minnesota Vikings have, if you compare them to those teams, have, in terms of defense, the best defensive coordinator in the entire NFL. You could dispute that if you want, but I think the results speak for themselves that I'd at least put Brian Flores in the top 5. The Vikings agreed by making him the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league. So there's a lot of factoring into that. Also, this same motif happened just 2 years ago with Kevin O'Connell, where he picked up a veteran quarterback that people like you thought was terrible, and he won 14 games with him. They had a favorable schedule. I also expect them to have a favorable schedule this year. The Detroit Lions seem to be sliding down the slippery slope a little bit of a team that peaked, and you should have familiarity with that, Mr. Draft Brain, because the Vikings did it a few years ago, where they peaked in 2017 and then bumbled around in the middle and could never get back to it because they got older and expensive and stuff like that, which is kind of happening to the Lions. Could they have a great year because of their schedule and because of Goff and everything? Also, I didn't say that Murray has a better chance of carrying the Vikings. I didn't say that. You said that. I didn't say that. I don't know why you're saying things I didn't say. Kyler Murray, who has been a similarly ranked quarterback, not by me, but NFL executives, as Jared Goff or as Dak Prescott, executives and coaches, not me. So not what I think, but what the people in the league think. Murray has been similarly ranked throughout his career to those quarterbacks, and I think his offensive setup with the coaching and with the offensive line, if they're healthy, with the depth that they built from the offensive line, and then with the wide receivers that are by far the best he's ever had in his career. So it's also not a power ranking of confidence. I didn't rank each little guy by how confident I am that they end up ranking there. Now, I could do that, and maybe I need to add that for people like yourself, but I think that when it comes to NFC North, the confidence should be very low of where we think these teams are going to go, because they're all so similar. They all have really good quarterbacks who have had peak seasons that are very, very good, including Kyler Murray, and they all have their shortcomings. They've had injuries, or they're older, or they just, drafted a right tackle to start, for example, like Detroit. So there's a lot of nuance in the conversation. But if you're just going to go, no playoff wins, you're an idiot. I mean, I just don't think that's a very good argument. So Dan's New York Giants with a top-notch head coach and easier schedule would crack the top 10. Vikings above Dallas, but below the Bears and Packers. To be the man, you must beat the man. Well, I don't know that either. I mean, the Bears, yeah, I guess until proven otherwise, except for the thing is that these teams, they bounce up and down all the time in the NFC North now. It isn't just put Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers at the top and then see where everybody else is. Every year it's up and down for this division, right? It doesn't have it feels like it has a different winner every single year now. So there's that. But I can buy that. I can buy them being still below the Bears and Packers because there is more stability there at the quarterback position for sure. And with the Giants, I think that you make a really good point. I thought I was, considering what the Giants were last year, I thought I was giving them a lot of credit on this power ranking. But you're being fair that if Jackson Dart takes a big step, I think he's got to prove he could stay healthy for me to believe that they can be more than a 7 or 8 win team, because he plays so out of control sometimes that he gets injured a lot. What did he have, 3 concussions last year alone? And I also think that the youth on the team is probably not there yet. Neighbors can come back and be very good, but I don't think they're deep at receiver. Their offensive line is going to be a little bit young with Maui Noah stepping into a different position. We saw some immaturity last year from Abdul Carter. They traded away Dexter Lawrence. I'm not there on them being anything more than maybe 3rd in the East, but I think they'll have massive improvements under John Harbaugh. JP would have had the Vikings at 7 or 8. 6 is fair. Skull Shadow Adrian was the most explosive, violent runner of football during his era. Everything else about him can be debated. Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. It's never a comfortable conversation about Adrian Peterson because of that. Because they didn't succeed a lot other than when Brett Favre was here, which speaks to the running back position. During his entire time, is that the only playoff win that they had was 2009? Is that right? I think that is right. So that, it was kind of the Favre more taking the front seat and Adrian taking the back seat as the centerpiece of the team. Now, that's not his fault. It's just one of those, it's hard to drive an entire team as a running back. He was the most explosive, violent runner, had a highlight reel that you could put up against anybody, statistics that you could put up against anybody. I think receiving when it comes to running backs is a little overrated. He would drop some balls sometimes, but he would catch checkdowns and run them, whatever. There's not a lot of guys that are Christian McCaffrey or Marshall Faulk that really move the needle that way. And pass protection, yes, there's limitations there, but that feels a little bit on the nitpicky side. They had Chester Taylor. I'm not saying like he wasn't, didn't struggle at it, or also didn't struggle with sometimes with the, famine feast, the explosive runs, but then the negative runs. But I think that when you stack up Adrian against all the running backs in history, you don't have to get down too many running backs before you get to him. There are other guys that have more complete resumes than Adrian Peterson, but in terms of peak, how good was he at his absolute best? Yeah, it's hard to find too many people that were better than he was. I did see that the NFL is slowly trickling out the schedule, and it's going to be Giants and Cowboys in week 1, Sunday Night Football. And yay, more Cowboys. They just will never stop. But you guys remember, if you've been watching the show for a while, Maggie Robinson, who interned on the show, she had worked in the NFL office. And one of the things that she mentioned was when they put together the schedule, it's this super arduous process, and it's just crazy how they do it. And it takes a long time and tons of details and everything else. And it's very cool, but they make no bones about it. Dallas brings the biggest audience, and they're going to get the audience, and they should be a relevant team this year. But them going for John Harbaugh, New York versus Dallas shouldn't be a shock to anybody. So yeah, you're still going to get a lot of Cowboys for sure. Joker, does PFF like the new Commanders defense? I have no idea what PFF or whatever is left of PFF thinks about it. And I don't know how we would even use the data to decide what a defense is going to be. One thing that I've learned over the years for sure is that defenses are probably the least predictive thing or predictable thing in the NFL. You can sure predict quarterbacks from one year to the next, not flawlessly, but pretty well when it comes to the best or what might undo them. But the Commanders, you look at, they went out and made a bunch of free agent moves last year. They got a bunch of new guys, and they just got hurt, and their defensive coordinator had no idea what he was doing. And it was just a whole mess. And Jaden Daniels got hurt, which made it even tougher. So I'm not really sure, but I do know that they've invested now a lot on that side. And Durante Jones is really good at what he does. And I wouldn't be surprised if Durante, just like Brian Flores, quickly turns around the Washington defense, which is one of the reasons. And again, this is really me projecting a lot of stuff, not just looking at last year and saying, well, they were this last year, so they're not that good. It's more of, I'm trying to project what the spending, the return of Jaden Daniels, and the hiring of Durante Jones are going to do for Washington. And I think they could be a good team that maybe last year it just, it didn't happen for them because of injuries and so forth. Edwin, 3rd and Jauan bumps up the Vikings. Look, I mean, when it comes to Jauan Jennings, it matters to me. This is a reason that I moved him up, a main reason. I think, getting defensive tackles in the draft helps. A little extra depth here or there. The new fullback moves you up at least one spot if you draft a fullback in the Purple Insider Power Rankings. But really, Jauan Jennings being as effective as a wide receiver as he has been in his career is the main reason that I moved him up, because I think he's better overall than Jalen Nailor. Nailor was good at one thing, and I think he'll have success with the Raiders, but this is somebody who brings an element that the Vikings have not had on their offense and is perfect for Kyler Murray. Now, see, Ray, we could be better than this. We could be better than this on the Purple Insider Show. Ray says, don't get the Murray. Yes, he's cheap, but he's not a winner. Do you guys know what you said about Sam Darnold last year? You said you got to get rid of Sam Darnold. He's not a winner. Do you know how many quarterbacks have been called not a winner and then won? I mean, Peyton Manning would be one of them, right? Probably the most famous example for me, the most notable example, is that Manning had a bunch of losses in the playoffs where he was bad or struggled. And it's like, well, he's a good regular season quarterback, just can't get it done. Sam Darnold, he's just a one-year wonder, but he's not a winner. You get him in those playoff games, he's going to melt down. Well, did he melt down in the NFC Championship game? Now, you can always, here's the other thing about this. If you say someone's not a winner, what you can do is just wait till they lose in the playoffs, as 31 teams do, and then say, yeah, he's not a winner. See, I told you. So I guess if the Vikings don't win the Super Bowl, you're right and I'm wrong. Murray's not a winner. But I don't think it works that way. I don't think it works that way when we're talking about NFL analysis. I think that usually teams are the ones that go deep into the playoffs and win the Super Bowl, not just quarterbacks. Now, Mahomes at times dragged his team there. Tom Brady at times dragged his team there. The two best quarterbacks in the history of the last 25 years in the NFL. Yeah, you can make that case. But Brock Purdy or Jalen Hurts or Jimmy Garoppolo or Matthew Stafford, I don't know. Like, I don't think that those quarterbacks just do it all by themselves. I think supporting cast, especially in the NFC. Look at the NFC right now. It's a lot of quarterbacks who rank 10th to 15th. It's a lot of quarterbacks that you'd put in the same tier. You would have Caleb Williams has a crazy high ceiling, but is he a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now? I'm not so sure. Dak Prescott has had his ups and downs. Jared Goff has had his ups and downs. Jalen Hurts has had his ups and downs. So what does it usually come down to of being a winner? It's whether your team is a winner. Just like with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold lost against the Rams because his team got outplayed and he didn't play well. But he won the Super Bowl because he played well and his team was amazing. So I just don't really think that that's the right approach. Joker, I have a FanDuel bet on the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean, look, after one player shouldn't really move the needle unless it's a quarterback. But a lot of times it's about the weaknesses that you have and will they get you? And if Jonathan Grenard is the best version of Jonathan Grenard, if he's the Grenard from 2 years ago, then that was a major weakness for the Eagles. And now it can't get them. And they add Lemon, they add Stowers, they add these guys who could step in right away and have a lot of success. They just handled their offseason really well. And then they hire a good offensive coordinator, I think, or a good mind to be an offensive coordinator. Certainly not a guarantee, but the Eagles do deserve some benefit of the doubt based on the way that they've continued to stay successful. And the improvement at offensive coordinator and along the defensive line there with Grenard just says to me, how can I put, after the success they've had and the additions they made, other teams who aren't as proven above them? Benjamin, let's look back at last year's power rankings and compare how these so-called experts actually did. Power rankings are just for conversational content in the offseason. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Benjamin. Well, yeah, no, and I don't take it. I said, like, hey, arguments for and against, like, what do we think of my list? And as I'm making the list, I'm going, I hate the list. Right? Like, I'm getting so frustrated. I wrote it and rewrote it and wrote it again. I was like, what's my ethos? I started to look internally. What's my ethos? And that's why I came up with chances to make the NFC Championship game are kind of the lens that I put this through. Who's actually the strongest? Not who I think's going to have the best record or whatever. It's who I think are really, truly Super Bowl contenders. And where the Vikings are, or the Lions, or the Bears, is just on the outside looking into that. And a lot of it is looking at teams' better case scenarios, maybe their 90th percentile outcomes, because we don't know what's going to go wrong. 3 teams could lose their quarterback in the first week. We don't know that. So in May, we're just looking at, well, all right, not best case scenario where the Vikings win 14 games like they did a couple years ago, but in a good case scenario where Kyler Murray is the best Kyler's ever been, or the best he's capable of being right now. Jefferson bounces back, Addison bounces back, Hockenson bounces back. The offensive line health is better. The run game is better. The defense is still really good. Where does that put you? 14? No. Does it put you at 10? 11? On the outside looking in at the best teams to go to the NFC Championship? Yeah, I think so. That's where I would have it. Scott, know you're doing the schedule breakdown on Thursday, but as of now, how many wins would you take the Vikings to get? I think 11. Do it once a month. Okay, Dennis, good deal. Good deal. We'll do it once a month. Yes, love that for NFC rankings. Now I won't, every week would probably be too aggressive, but because I couldn't change enough, but once a month. And what I'll try to do is not look back at my previous ranking. I'll just make it based on what I think. I'll totally forget about it in a month. That's a great idea. Thank you, Dennis. How many wins do I have them? Well, that's what I'm interested to find out from myself when I pick the schedule is how many wins, because I don't want to set a target number. Right now, the Vikings over-under on FanDuel is 8.5. So I would have them going over. That means at least 9 wins, but can we look at a schedule? And I truly do not do this until I actually get the real schedule. And then I just go win, loss, win, loss. Like off my first impression, first instinct. I don't like to spend too much time like really thinking about it, breaking it down. Like, let's just see what I really think. So at the moment, as you see from them being 6th on the power rankings, I think they've done a really good job this offseason. I think they could even continue to add a little bit more and get into a good spot with this roster to be right there with everybody else. And then they need things to go their way. But 11, I will say this to your number. 11's a good number. 11 is a good number for this team. You have to take some leaps of faith, sure, on Kyler Murray, because, I mean, we just don't know what he's really going to look like as a Minnesota Vikings quarterback. My research, my thought process is that this is going to work, but I mean, I don't really know, just like no one else really knows how it's going to go. And if you went forward in the future, Marty McFly, and came back in the DeLorean and said, no, actually, JJ McCarthy started 11 games this year, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, all right. Because a lot of stuff's on the table. Now, I mean, I talked about this the other night. I don't think there's a competition, and I'll continue to not think that until I see split reps, first team reps in training camp. I'm not going to think until then that there's a real competition between Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy. But, you know, I do see, though, an outcome that is fairly likely based on everyone's past and a projection based on Flores' past, based on Murray's, based on KOC's, where they are about at the mark you're laying out at 11 wins. And I just don't think their schedule is going to be that hard. Joker, did you see Ruben Bain in Bucks camp? One of my favorite things is when people tweet warm-up reps in rookie minicamps, and then they go, man, this guy. It's like they're just warming up, guys. I mean, we just talked about how hard it is to figure out things from a training camp, from 12 training camp practices or whatever we get to see, whatever number, 12, 15, and it's still hard to figure stuff out with how players are really going to do. But, certainly a rep of a guy running around a bag. I think Bain will be good, by the way. I like Ruben Bain a ton. I was surprised he dropped as far as he did. So I shouldn't have said the entire Bucks offseason was terrible, but losing Mike Evans, pretty rough. Baker was not the same guy last year, but Ruben Bain is a great draft pick for them. Love that. Purple Tears. Which teams does Detroit get that we won't? Oh man, on the spot here. I have to look at last year's standings and their scheduled opponents. I don't know. You have to look that up, but it's a 4th place schedule. So it would be the teams in the other divisions that were in 4th place. So for example, they get Arizona, you get San Francisco. That's the difference. That's a big difference. So that's one of them, for sure. It's, look, it was an exciting -5 yards passing game or whatever it was for Max Brosmer, but winning on Christmas Day did make the path a little bit more difficult, more likely than not for the Vikings this year. Matt says, you mentioned the other day how Jennings compares to receivers the Vikings have had over the years. Do you think he compares closely to Hawkinson, or does he cut into his snaps this year? I don't think that he'll cut into Hawkinson's snaps because I think that Hawkinson's going to be on the field a lot. But I do think there is some comparison there where you're talking about a guy who's 6'3", 215 pounds, probably runs about the same 40 as a lot of tight ends, and has to get into the right places to catch the ball, break tackles, use his contested catch abilities, got really, really good hands, go up and get it, box people out, like a lot of the same things. It's kind of like a small tight end, yes, but it's just more of it's like a poor man's version of Anquan Bolden or Larry Fitzgerald in the later stages of their careers. Well, I shouldn't even say a poor man's version. It's like a young man's version is what it is. A young man's version of what those guys did. They kind of come to mind just because they were playing like a big slot type of position. And I'm sure there's other players in the league. This is what Robert Woods was doing later in his career for the Rams, was kind of playing this. He's tough and he's not the fastest, but he makes plays. And where I think that Jauan Jennings can really be big. So he's called third in Jauan for one reason, because a lot of times the attention goes to other receivers and he's there to make a play. The other area where I think the Vikings have struggled is the red zone. They have not been able to get the ball consistently to Jefferson, which makes sense because so many people are just putting their attention on Jefferson. But they open up opportunities for other players. And Jalen Nailor was just not that guy. Jalen Nailor was not that guy that was going to slam into a linebacker, create a little space for himself, and then just go up and get a ball. That wasn't him. And it is Jauan Jennings. So I think that's where the biggest area, like a tight end, that he could take advantage of. And I'll get to the interview with Kyle Madsen, who covers the 49ers later, but he made a similar comparison to you. It's like having another tight end who's just like good. Weatherby says, I prefer the Vikings be ranked bad. They seem to play better in those seasons. Well, that is the, what would you call it? Like the ping ponging up and down, the roller coastering that is the Minnesota Vikings. You're exactly right. Because when people do expectations, or Vegas does expectations, or power rankers do expectations, it usually is based on last year. It is, I mean, if you're talking about a totally different quarterback taking over this operation, it has totally different viewpoint of everybody, totally different expectations, totally different roles, totally different offense. Like everything is different when you have Kyler Murray versus like everything last year with Wentz and McCarthy trying to learn how to play football and Brosmer just getting sacked all the time. Like this is very, very different, but no one knows really what to think of it. And they can't get last year out of their head. They also probably can't get last year for Kyler Murray out of their head. But that's the same to me as saying like, well, Sam Darnold was bad with Carolina. Well, yeah, but Carolina was really bad. And having looked at, I mean, I've watched probably, I think, how many games was it? 22. So all of 2024 and all of 2025 for Kyler Murray. And there are shortcomings that show up repeatedly with Kyler that I don't think you can mitigate all of them. And no one should take me putting a power ranking as number 6 as saying, look, Kyler's going to win MVP this year. Okay, that's not where I'm going with this. But when I watched how much his receivers struggled and how much he was forced to put the ball in Trey McBride's hands because he was the guy he could trust to get open, I'm like, okay, well, that's going to be different. We know that's going to be different. And when I look at, now his offensive line actually in 2024 was pretty good. But last year was not. A lot of free runners, a lot of miscommunications on the offensive line. So he had to make a lot of plays there. You could see, though, why there's inconsistency. And this is what wouldn't shock me. Earlier, it was like 11 wins was thrown out there. 10 is a pretty good number for this team. Why it wouldn't shock me is because Murray every season, and you see it in 24, you see it in a little bit in 25, every season has these spikes because a lot of his success is reliant on making spectacular plays. And we know this from receivers. You can't count on receivers just making spectacular catches all the time. The guys who have the most consistent success are the receivers who just beat people off the line of scrimmage. That's the guy who has the most success consistently. So there will be inconsistent elements to Murray, but the idea is that you could probably smooth them out with multiple wide receivers where would Jauan Jennings have ranked? Jauan Jennings might be the 3rd best wide receiver the guy has had in his career, and he's the number 3 wide receiver here. I mean, late stage AJ Green was okay, and Michael Wilson's pretty good. I like Michael Wilson. I mean, is he better than Jennings? Maybe about the same. Probably a little better right now. He's younger. I mean, it's DeAndre Hopkins. And late Larry Fitzgerald, again, just like AJ Green, can't really put them up there. truly Jauan Jennings might be the third best wide receiver that he's had in his career. And that's wide receiver 3. So I think it's fair to give some benefit of the doubt that he can get there. Oh, you've got the Lions opponents. So the only 2 good non-NFC North opponents are the Bills and the Patriots. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. But the Vikings do have a lot of that. It's just that they have, I mentioned the Cardinals. Oh, the other one was the Titans must be, right? Oh man. Oh man. Yeah. The Vikings getting 9 home games, the Vikings getting the NFC South, the Dolphins, the Jets. Another reason for me to think that it could potentially work. Justin says the 49ers won't be good. Neither will the Commanders. I think the Vikings' path through the season won't be bad at all. Commanders, I just feel like it's so much like the Vikings in the way you have to just throw out what happened last year. You have to just throw it out. I mean, they had everybody hurt and they did not have their superstar quarterback, and they had a bad situation on defense at the defensive coordinator position that they did not resolve. Like all those things. And then that's pretty rough. And they were not in the mix or in the conversation, but they got to draft it in the top 5 and got to get Sonny Styles, which should help them a lot right away. Durante Jones should help them a lot. So and also I had them 7th. I didn't have them 3rd. I had them 7th, which means right in that same squished middle of teams that are somewhere, I think, between 9 and 11 wins. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if Jaden Daniels just bounces back and is very good, but they've got holes and they've got weaknesses that are going to hold them back from being a real NFC championship contender. Joker, even half of Vikings fans don't realize the Vikings were a quarterback away from being good last year. Can't blame the outsiders for not knowing either. I do think that Vikings fans probably realized that halfway through the season as Sam Darnold was thriving with the Seattle Seahawks, but I know what you mean. It's tough to look beyond. That's why projecting is hard. And that's why doing this power rankings was not the easiest thing. Like projecting forward is hard because you have preconceived notions based on what you saw on the actual field last year. And so you're trying to go, well, if you carry the 1 and if you actually do this, even with saying, hey, if the Vikings just had a good quarterback last year, hey, they won 9 without one, even that has its flaws because yes, Hargrave and Allen were not incredible, but they were serviceable NFL players. We don't know what Banks and Orange are going to be. So far, they haven't really signed a proven other defensive tackle. So you're kind of looking at some sort of rotation in there. How's that going to work out? Last year, we never bring up anything that went right. Like Will Reichard was the best kicker in the whole league and their corners stayed healthy. And right. I mean, that was something where they had other guys getting injured, but their corners were healthy the entire season. They had Harrison Smith play all pro level safety last year for like 5 weeks. And if he's not here, then who's doing that? So not everything can just be repeated, but I just feel like if you're looking at boxes to check of a team that's better than they were last year, improved quarterback, there's no way to say otherwise. There's no way to say otherwise that Murray is not an improvement. Of course he is. Murray is an improvement. Offensive line depth is improved. Offensive line coach potentially could be improved, especially with the run game, bringing in another team's coach to be your run game kind of specialist. Wide receiver, I think, is improved in terms of its actual fit with the quarterback. So there's just a lot there that you would say pushes the needle forward, but not everything is going to play out the way we expect. Shot you 99. How do we trust the team's medical with Caleb Banks based on how they treated Darrisaw's injury? I think Darrisaw thing was very complicated. I don't know all the details there. I just know what Kevin O'Connell has said on the record, which is that it was a much worse injury than they had really revealed, I think, to the public. So, Darrisaw, I think, had a lot more complications than just, hey, the medical team doesn't know what they're doing. And I also think another part of it too, this is not from Darrisaw or anybody else, so not reporting, just talking out loud. have seen many players come back from injuries, and confidence is a big problem with that. Like just believing in it, knowing that you can trust it, the recovery and everything else. So the doctors may look at it and say, look, dude, like you're good. There's nothing that's going to be a problem here. And then you feel a twinge and it's terrifying. Like there's legitimate, like traumatic things that happen when you have to have lots of surgeries that we just take for granted when it comes to football players. Just, oh yeah, well, so you have this huge injury, just come back and play. What are you doing? On Madden, the guy just recovers and then comes back to my team. These are human beings and they affect people differently. So I think with Darrisaw, maybe an entire offseason to start from day one will be really good for him. But I don't know if we can just look at the medical team. I think it was a huge challenge last year for their medical team, definitely across the board with a lot of different injuries they had to face. How does it connect to Caleb Banks? That I don't know. What they did with Caleb Banks, I'm sure, is they have a foot expert and they looked at it and they looked at what type of surgery, because they could tell a lot of different stuff and the medical reports are not perfect, but they can tell a lot of different stuff. So you look at it and you say, here's the surgeries that he's had. What is the long-term expectation for this? Is this something, because there's stuff that does heal and there's stuff that doesn't heal. There's stuff that has a much higher chance of re-injuring and there's stuff that doesn't. So I think by the Vikings drafting him, we can get a feeling that they believe that there is not a huge chance of this going wrong or not any different than anybody else just because he's had surgery. And that's the best we can do. But when it comes to, just when it comes to like a foot injury or something, you're talking about a guy who's 6'6", 330. Like there's some common sense that goes into that. You're talking about the supplemental draft, blind bid by draft pick round with waiver priority. Man, it's confusing. It is confusing. I get what you mean. But I have to, if it actually happens, we'll go through all the rules for sure. I just know it almost never happens. But this could be a unique situation if somebody's looking for a quarterback. Skull Shadow, the way the team is set up, screams 7-10, 9-8 with an elite defense, quarterback play, and ability to control the line of scrimmage on offense will be the difference of playoffs and another midseason. I think a lot of it you mentioned comes down to the line of scrimmage on offense. And that's where I totally agree. Because if you tell me that Brian O'Neill is healthy, Christian Darrisaw is back to being Darrisaw, Blake Brandel does pretty well there. Let's say he's like the 18th best center. And then they have a very good defense, then you can write it into they can win the division as long as none of the other teams have some crazy 15-win season. But if they can have a healthy offensive line with Kyler and the way that he plays, then they have a very good chance to have a at least ballpark top 10 offense. I don't see it as top 5 offense, but I think it can be hovering around the top 10 and the running game will improve a lot. But a lot of it comes down to those guys. Joker. Oh, was this mine? Did you look up mine? How I had it? Oh, it looks like you did. It looks like this is my power ranking from April 6th. Wow, you're good, man. So I had the Lions as 4th, Packers 5th, and I was giving Washington a lot of credit then, Bears and Vikings 7 and 8. So I was squishing it together. It was April 6th. That must have been, we're before the draft, after free agency. Yeah, okay. So, but a lot of those teams are very close together. Oh, I had the Eagles 9th. Okay. Yeah. So I've given them a lot of credit for the way that they're doing their offseason. Wow. Skull Shadow. Feel like basically all the moves this offseason by Brzezinski are creating a slate for the new GM to make necessary moves in the 7, you mean, right? Offseason, lots of contracts ending after 2026. Yeah. So let's talk about that for a minute. And I know the Wild are getting going and I want to, watch it. So I'll get to that in shortly, but I did want to say this, that the more that I have marinated, this is going to come across funny because what I'm going to say is the more I've thought about it, the more I'm right. I don't want it to be it that way. But the more that I've thought about the structure, The more that I would really like the Wilfs to consider Rob Brzezinski to be the very top of the organization, with the GM and the coach answering to him and him answering to ownership. I just think it's right. I think that he's shown right here what a credible person who understands asset management can do, and patience can do, and can be that restrictor plate. And I got some emails about what restrictor plates really are and their history and everything, which I just think you guys are awesome for doing stuff like that. But it's the right metaphor, is being the restrictor plate of, we're not doing something to save you guys butts. We're not doing something that's going to hurt us long-term, or we're going to move a player before the right time or at the right time rather than waiting too long or whatever it was. There's a lot of stuff that was handled very well in an offseason that could have been incredibly panicky. And I think Rob staying the course was just excellent. It just really, really good to set them up for, if you have to sign Kyler, you can. And if you don't end up signing Kyler and you have quarterback uncertainty, you have the flexibility to sign one. You have the flexibility to, if it's McCarthy, then use that rookie quarterback contract and build up through free agency, but also protect your draft stock. Like, a lot of things were handled the right way. And you can debate whether you like the draft or don't like the draft or didn't like that pick or that pick. That was driven by the coaches. That's pretty clear. So the next GM would drive the draft process. That's not something where Rob is going to come in over the top. In my scenario where he's the president, you would have an overseeing of the process with the new general manager. But the new GM is going to be holding those draft meetings, sending the scouts out with certain edicts that they're looking to accomplish, managing that entire thing. And that person is going to, based on every person they brought in, have a scouting background. So that's the scouting GM, manage the scouting, the pro scouts, the amateur scouts. That's your main thing, is the player evaluation. But the asset management and the restrictor plates and the guardrails is going to be at the very top, and the communication with ownership. I just like it. I just think it's a great idea, rather than saying Rob or none of those guys, because a lot of the people they interviewed have great resumes that you'd love to bring into your organization. So I did have that thought. The more that we've been discussing it, I know Mark Wilf said to my question that they didn't expect to do that, but maybe they'll change their mind based on how Rob Brzezinski has performed. Just wanted to toss that out there. Jay, what's the number one thing of Kyler's game you think will help us get to the playoffs this year? I think that what Kyler is, this is going to surprise you, because playmaking is what came to everybody's mind when you asked that question. Well, obviously, the guy can run for 500 yards and make sick plays. I actually think that it's accuracy. I think that he is a very accurate quarterback overall. Down the field has been less recently. Receiver talent's been less recently. But when it comes to hitting a 10-yard in route, he does throw over the middle more than people think. When it comes to finding a guy open in a zone, when it comes to a 10-yard out, he is deadly at throwing these quick outs, where you saw Jefferson and Kirk Cousins. He's a lot like Kirk when it comes to his accuracy and his arm. He does not have the strongest arm ever. The ball is not whipping through the air like Sam Darnold, but he is good at anticipating and throwing to spots and letting his receiver go get it. He's very good with timing plays. When he sees it right away and identifies it and gets it, bang, bang, it's going to be on the money. It's like throwing a dart. So I actually think that's the best thing that's going to translate. The playmaking is going to be there, but that's the thing you're going to go, oh, whoa, okay. That was, 8 throws in a row right on the money or something from Kyler, because that's built into his hard wiring. That's how he was the best Texas high school football player ever. And that was the story I did, interviewing people, asking that question. And a lot of people said yes. So that there's natural stuff there that's really, really good with him throwing the ball. Hunter, probably just a homer, but bullish on the Vikings this year. I don't think you're being a homer. I think you've watched the Vikings. You've seen this happen enough times to say, yeah, like it could absolutely happen again. It's not a guarantee, but they've got the coaching, they've got the roster to at least be in that discussion. Joker, Vikings fan, the Vikings had the third ranked DVOA last year on defense. Myth Carthy fans will still say the team failed him. Yeah, it's a whole different discussion. I mean, I think if there's a way if there's a way the team failed him, it was by playing him. Like, that was the way they failed him. The way they failed him was not franchise tagging Sam Darnold and letting him develop. I will keep coming back to this, that when it comes to Kyler and JJ McCarthy, if you're a JJ McCarthy fan, if you bought number 9, if you love JJ McCarthy, then I think that you should be on board with what's happening here, which is a starting quarterback's going to play, but JJ's going to get every opportunity to develop without being hurt. And when the time comes, and I almost promise you there will be a time, to be ready and show what he's got. And even though the pie chart wouldn't have him as the highest percentage chance to be the starting quarterback in 2027, he's certainly not at 0. And it's on him. The onus is on him. Murray's not under contract. So unless Murray wins like 12 games and a playoff game and is amazing, that's going to be a real debate of whether to sign him. But if JJ McCarthy shows him everything that they believed in when they drafted him behind the scenes, because they know a lot of times behind the scenes, and then he's going to probably get in some games at some point. If he shows all that progress, then there is still a chance that he ends up as their starting quarterback. But at very least, if you're a big JJ McCarthy person, what you know is he's going to get time to develop, which he so desperately needed last year and couldn't get. Scott, how do you expect the Vikings scheme to improve in the run game? Feel like our running back room, there's only so much can be done, unfortunately. That I agree with. Unless Damon Claiborne is amazing, which, I guess it's possible. Jordan Mason is good, though. He's just not crazy explosive. So there's a couple of things that I noticed from watching back Miami's run game. Number one is pre-snap stuff. There is a lot of motion. There is a lot of eye candy. There is a lot of late motion. So just envision, say, Max Bredesen lines up at tight end on the right side, Josh Oliver on the left side. And right before the snap, Bredesen sneaks into the B gap, like in motion. They snap it as he gets to the B gap. The tackle and the guard block each way out. Bredesen goes up, hits the linebacker. Right behind him is the running back with free space. This happened all the time. They would do counters. They would do pitches where you'd see the fullback go one way and here comes the linebacker with him, and then they pitch the opposite way. If you watch Miami's run game and then you watch the Vikings run game, you're like, that is totally different. Totally different. So I don't know that you could do everything that they could do with Devon Achane, who's spectacular, but it's just creativity. And to me, it's misdirection. It's where are they going with the ball? This blocker's going that way, but the ball is going that way. They would ask tight ends to do some crazy stuff. Their fullback to cover a lot of ground to get to a gap. But when they get there in time, it creates a huge hole. So there's a lot of stuff that they can build on there schematically that's just under the category of trying, creativity, effort, studying what other great teams do, stealing from another great running team in Miami. I don't know if they'll put in all of it because they don't have Devon Achane, but I think it will at least cause more of a threat, and then you could build play action stuff off that. But they would do it out of every formation. They would do it out of a traditional I form. They would do it out of pistol, all sorts of stuff. I mean, they had a lot of great ideas in Miami. Actually, everyone should be terrified of what the Chargers can do with the run game if their offensive line stays healthy with Mike McDaniel out there. Son of Beavers, who had the best offseason in the NFC North. Gosh, doesn't it feel like they didn't have one? Doesn't it feel like, I wrote about this the other day and I thought, am I crazy? So I went through their off seasons of Detroit and Green Bay and Chicago. And I was like, well, how many moves did they really make? Who was the biggest free agent signing of the NFC North? Is it Jauan Jennings? There's just really wasn't massive changes in the offseason. It's probably, I guess it might be Detroit for solving their tackle issue and their offensive coordinator problem. It might be Detroit just for doing that because I think that offensive coordinator had a big deal. But they lost Montgomery. They bring in Pacheco. He's been banged up. He hasn't been that good. They're asking a rookie to play tackle. They're asking kind of a mediocre center to start and be a big upgrade. I don't know. I feel like the Vikings are the Vikings were the team that was being talked about in free agency who did nothing, but I'm not sure anybody really did. It's kind of fascinating, actually. Yeah, Hunter, yep, AP definitely carried them to the playoffs in 2012. Unfortunately, I remember the Joe Webb game and they did not win, but that was an incredible season. 2012, 2007, incredible season. And it's hard because you want to focus on those things when it comes to a Ring of Honor and everything else. And the stories about, Adrian, his best games, the game against the Chargers, all those sorts of things. There's such magic to it that you can't not say the other stuff. But as a player, as a highlight reel, as an unstoppable force, as fun to watch as anybody has ever been. Intern Maggie is no longer Intern Maggie. It's true. Yeah, she's going out there into the world. Yep. Getting a job, and we'll check back in with her at some point. But they fly the coop, and then we don't see him anymore. Paul Hodowanik's out there covering Rory McIlroy and golf majors at the Masters and stuff. Just doesn't have time for old Purple Insider that taught him how to podcast or whatever. But no, Maggie's doing great, and I'm sure we'll get an update on her soon to pass along to you guys. But unfortunately, no longer Intern Maggie. That's what intern is, right? It's like, you stop in, we teach you how to do stuff, and then off you go. Yeah, you're funny. Joker. Like to introduce you to the new general manager of the Titans, Intern Maggie. Hey, she could have done better than them over recent years. Purple Kool-Aid, even Mahomes over the last couple of years is ranked as a mediocre QB. It's hard to be Superman when you have a lackluster roster. I also think that there's 5 teams in the NFL that still have no damn clue what they're doing, but a lot of teams have gotten better at this, and it becomes kind of a roster building contest. And there's a lot of good quarterbacks in the NFL now. So if you're the Denver Broncos and you have a good but not great quarterback, but you have an amazing roster and you're coached super well, you can beat the Chiefs, because the Chiefs, as all teams, if they don't draft well and their roster starts to fall apart, that's what you get. The only guy that sort of seems untouchable is Allen, and they still have an elite running back, really good offensive line overall, especially when it comes to run blocking. They had one of the best defensive coaches in the NFL. They fired him. I'm curious to see how that goes. People might not remember that Sean McDermott's defense is never ranked worse than 12th when he was there. So we'll see how that goes. But your point is well taken. Scott, do you have any potential edge free agents that we could get? Worried what would happen if Turner or Van Ginkel go down? There's a couple. AJ Epinesa comes to mind, who's still out there. Why don't we try to have a look here at the free agent list at edge rusher and hope that overthecap.com that we could do it fast enough before it melts my computer, because it always tends to. Can you guys tell that I bought some shoes? Overthecap.com with the ads. Come on. This is insane. This is that's just too much. But I did buy some shoes. And then I heard that Allbirds is going to become a data mining company or something. So I guess I have to get more shoes so I have them. But yeah, there you go. Wow. Let's look at the free agents here. Let's sort by snaps. Jihad Ward is still out there. That actually might be a good addition. Joey Bosa, I can't see fitting here. Cameron Jordan, I think, would be awesome, only for the fact that he's Cameron Jordan. He's Steve Jordan's son. He's just been a nemesis to the Vikings for a long time. That would be really cool. I don't think he fits. Hassan Reddick does fit as an outside linebacker. He is 32. Still might have something in the tank, though. Bryce Huff would be kind of a swing at someone who's been up and down. I mentioned Epinesa. Kyle Van Noy has been a guy at an outside linebacker for the Ravens and the Patriots. Leonard Floyd's still out there kicking, man. 34 years old. Is he going to continue to play? So those would kind of be the best. Vaughn Miller, I'm just out on. Dante Fowler did sign actually just today with the Seahawks, of course. Emmanuel Ogbah has been a guy who's kind of been out there. So, you get to a point where probably not going to be useful, but there's some guys, there's some dudes that could be helpful. Joker, the truth to why Matthew never did power rankings is too hard to get right. Well, inexact sciences do kind of frustrate me like that. Yeah. I mean that you're not totally wrong. You're not totally wrong that it's so hard to do. And then you come away still feeling like, maybe this team belongs there. Maybe that team belongs there. I don't know. The one thing I feel like I always don't want to be afraid to do is to say, I don't know. When you ask me, how did this guy look at rookie minicamp? It's like, I don't know. He was hitting a bag. Like, I couldn't tell you. I'm not that good. How is this rookie going to work out? I don't know. We'll see. People don't understand power rankings aren't supposed to be standings predictions, team schedule. Yeah, Scott. The whole thing is kind of cheeky, to be honest. I mean, it's sort of like, it's a little bit of, I'm trying to have fun with it, and I'm trying to maybe like see if I can do it better than anybody else, which I probably can't. But I think it's created a lot of interesting conversation right here. So this is probably why everyone does power rankings all the time. Purple Tears, without looking at the schedule yet, seems that the personnel-wise, a slight improvement could be shown. Let's hope that could be 11 or 12 wins. Yeah, I mean, I think that the personnel overall, 2 through 53, is a little better, if not maybe, well, it's about the same. Because if you lose Harrison Smith, he played really great down the stretch. That's a big loss. The defensive tackle's suspect how much of a big loss that's going to be, depending on where Caleb Banks is at. And losing Grenard is pretty big. So I don't think 2 through adding Jennings helps, adding offensive line depth helps, but I don't think number 2 through 53 is way better for the Vikings. I don't think it's way worse. I do think player number 1 at quarterback, the resumes do speak for themselves of the peak of this player has been really good. Not megastar, but really, really good. And what they had last year, even if you said, like if JJ McCarthy, if they were really committed to it and they thought we're going to roll with it no matter what, they couldn't be number 6 on my power rankings because it would just be so volatile, so little we had to work with that it would be hard. It would be like impossible to put them among the better teams. But I think with Murray, people on the outside are acting like the guy's been terrible for his entire career. That's a little bit weird to me because he absolutely hasn't. There have been high years where he's been good. Joker predicted us going 11-6 last year, but starting out 8-0. Well, we don't always predict it correctly. That's why we try. Gatino's Christmas channel. Vikings get the Commanders, Lions get the Giants. Pretty sure that the Giants will be tougher of the two this year. So I've got the Commanders as a pretty hard matchup, but I think the Giants will be much more difficult than they were. Detroit gets Arizona, the Giants in New Orleans. Okay. That makes sense. Was New Orleans last year? I guess they were. Yeah, I guess they were. Okay. Scott, I got around 11 wins going through the schedule. Well, I want to see, look, we can pick out wins based on opponents right now, but I always like to wait till we actually get the real schedule to pick it. Taking a split with the NFC North. Don't see how the team doesn't get to 10 wins, considering we won 9 last year with horrendous quarterback play. Kerpluppy, get confused why folks are still bullish on the Lions. What changed that ranks them higher than Minnesota when they got 4th place to Minnesota's 2025 dumpster fire? Because a lot has changed in Minnesota. I mean, that's a fair point, Kerpluppy. And with Detroit, I think that why I was giving, just to be honest, I think why I was giving them benefit of the doubt in the first power rankings was that I expected something to happen. I expected them to make a trade or some sort of big move. Max Crosby was still sort of being kicked around, but something, right? We've seen a couple of trades since then. I thought that they would do something. And I also thought they would go into the draft and take kind of a big swing and attempt to grab like a complete difference making player. And, they got fair players, but I don't think that they really did that. I just don't. I was kind of giving them like, all right, something's coming for Detroit, right? And it hasn't. So I can't put them as being that much better. Gattino's Christmas channel. The Vikings get the Colts. No quarterback this year. Quarterback's coming off the Achilles. At least the Titans have a quarterback. Yeah, I mean, the Colts are generally like a pretty tough team to play against. You're right about Daniel Jones. Not all Achilles injuries are the same, though. We found that out from Brian O'Neill. Brian O'Neill had an Achilles injury, came back the next year, and then Kirk had an Achilles injury that was horrendous. So they're not all the same. A partial tear might not be the same as a full tear, and I don't know if they ever put it out there exactly what happened with him, but it's a fair enough point. Like, is there a big gap between the Colts and the Titans? If the Titans take a step forward, possibly not. And Scott, you're not terribly wrong that I bumped up the Eagles because they drafted Mekhi Lemon. It's actually part of it. I mean, it's trading for Grenard and adding Lemon because when all the rumors are out there, they're going to trade A.J. Brown. It's like, well, then what? Where are they going to get another receiver? And then they go get a very talented one and a very talented sort of tight end or big slot type player that can help them a lot. Gattino, Wilfs need someone in the building, and Brzezinski can be that someone. Yeah. Joker, Rob for president. Hunter, totally agree on Rob being the top guy. If the Wilfs aren't going to be in the building, they need a guy they could totally trust at the top, and Rob is perfect for that role. I'm glad you guys get it, because that's exactly how I feel. Still, despite my campaigning, I've not been added to the search committee, and I've not been contacted about how they should structure the front office. Although I feel that asking Mark Wilf was like making the suggestion to him. So maybe he said, "What a great question by that young man who looks great in the Arizona sun. I think I'm going to take that into consideration." Maybe it happened. Or maybe they saw how Rob operated this thing and said, "We'll see. We'll see how it ends up structuring out." I just think it's a good idea, and I feel like you guys get where I'm coming from with that, because having that trust factor of the guy at the top, having been here forever, I know this for sure about Rob. This man cares so deeply about this organization, the fans, succeeding, chasing a Super Bowl. That's in his blood. I mean, he wants these things. And he made that clear to us at the Combine. I mean, he didn't have to say it. I mean, look how long he's been at this. Like, he wants a Super Bowl more than anybody. But I also think that this year showed a lot of restraint. This year was, we are not giving away the future. And that's the type of person who is the long-term thinker that you need at the top. And if there is conflict between a GM and a coach or a front office, then the Wilfs can be informed in it and they can deal with it in a much better way than being like, "Oh, wait, what? It's not working? Fired?" Like, this is better. We'll see if it actually happens. Joker going from a quarterback without NFL accuracy to a quarterback with special NFL accuracy will likely be shocking. Purple Tears, 40 minutes of Let's Go Wild. Matt, you're hitting on all cylinders. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying the show. Just happy we have 3 good and healthy quarterbacks. As of right now, they are healthy as of right now. But I do wish the Wild the best. I will wrap it up shortly, but I still have Kyle Madsen coming on here shortly. We recorded an interview about Jauan Jennings that I want to bring you guys. So I guess you can turn down the game and listen to the show at the same time. Gattino, I think that everyone is underselling signing Murray in free agency just because it didn't cost them, but we don't see any other free agents that will have a bigger impact. I mean, on the entire NFL, there's no free agent with more potential because it's a quarterback to have on their team, other than like Daniel Jones returning, same sort of thing. And Scott, you're right. People have recency bias. It's impossible to not have recency bias. Like, we can't, no one is good enough to totally throw out what you've last seen. But there's some stuff that gets said where I'm just like, did you look into this at all? Well, he was benched for Jacoby Brissett. Oh, come on. He was not benched for Jacoby Brissett. He had a foot injury that kept him out numerous weeks. And even if you look into the details, there was concern about if you bring him back too early, then the amount of, I don't know, it was something to do with blood flow to the injury or whatever. So there's a little concern about if you push them back too early and then they fall completely off the side of the earth, why would you bring back Kyler Murray to help you win a couple games and cost you your number 3 draft pick? It was as obvious of a tank move as you could get. So there's that, not to mention no one watched his 24 season, which was legitimately very good. And the games that he had where it went downhill, there was this section where he faced Flores and then the Seahawks. This was like a 4-game section where it was Flores and then Seahawks and then somebody else and then Seahawks again. And it kind of came apart for his season then. But this is the thing about a streaky quarterback is every time, we had Kirk Tober, same sort of thing. Like every time it goes up and down, the guy could feel like the best or the worst. So they could disappoint you in that way. And that's what they're going to have to battle against with Kyler. The shoes. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I know. I love the Allbirds shoes, man. I wish they weren't going away. Good thing I was shopping for that, I guess, on this computer because I just called up over the cap. I didn't expect to see every shoe I looked at. Yeah. Oh man. Romello, who do I think for the opener will be and the last game? The last game is going to be in the NFC North. So, Bears, Lions, Packers, one of those 3. I'll just go for prediction. For prediction standpoint, I'll just go Bears. Will be the last game at home. I don't know. Better question might be who do I want them to be as the opener? Because I don't know. And I try to avoid the leaks. I really do. I try to log off during that day because I don't want the leaks. I want to look at the schedule for the first time with fresh eyes. Who would be the best team for the Vikings? I mean, is it Patriots? Is it, Drake May versus KOC? That's kind of juicy. Who would be the best team for them? That's a whole show. That's a great show to talk about like each team and their case or a longer conversation. I'm trying to think who would be the best for them to face. Nobody in the NFC South. If it's not a division game, who would it be? San Fran? At San Fran? That could be sexy. That could be good. Patriots keeps coming to mind, or home Bills. The Bills will probably get a bigger home game against somebody else because they're, popular with Josh Allen. Home Bills would be pretty good if they could do that. Son of Beavers, by my count, 13 linebackers on the 90-man. What are the odds Ivan Pace makes the team? I think he'll make the team because he's an experienced special teamer and they don't have any experienced special teamers. That's probably the main reason that I think he will make the team, but they do have a lot of competition at that position. You just need it with the way that the kickoff is playing a huge role. I feel like you need extra linebackers now. Joker waiting for FanDuel to post alternative win totals for the Vikings. Right now, it's 8.5 and plus 600. I don't think those things are going to change to win the division. I don't think those are going to change. Oh, and FanDuel question of the day is that I power rank the Eagles 3rd and they're plus 750 to win the conference. Do you think that I'm being giving them too much credit or not? Most of you didn't seem to think that. Purple Tears still hold out hope that 22 stays Hitman. Well, what I go back and forth a little bit on that because, yeah, for sure, I'd like to see Harrison back, and he's a great guy to talk to in the locker room, and he's incredible to watch play football. So, of course I want that. But you don't want someone to not be there unless they truly, truly want to. And last year, it was a lot on Harrison Smith physically and emotionally. So I wonder if it is the right time or, he could just kind of decide at some point, like maybe it's time or if he gets the itch or whatever. But you never want to see that downfall. Scott says, wasn't sure about Kyler first, but people actually looked into it. They'd be very surprised with his play. But that's the point, right? Like we do this all the time. You guys are Vikings fans. I cover the team. And so they get Kyler Murray. What are we going to do? We're going to go watch Kyler Murray, look into his numbers, have, Josh Weinfuss, who covers him from ESPN on the show. And I'm sorry. I'm now forgetting who the other Arizona guest. I had another Arizona guest, Alex. Alex Clancy, the podcaster, came on here, and Alex was great. So yeah, we've done a lot. I don't expect somebody who covers all 32 teams to put in that much work. Like, there's only 24 hours in the day. So they're going to have to kind of go on perception at some point. Joker, Rob's role is Brizesident, proxy owner and manager of everyone, and only intervenes when needed. Yeah, I like that. Mama Coller's going to have to do a 5-hour stream tonight. Well, I'm going to be jumping off soon because I want to watch this Wild game, but I still have this interview with Kyle Madsen I want you guys to see. So, Mama, remember the Kyler hate, LOL, since Caleb Banks pick. I don't think I've heard Kyler haters. It's the front office hater. Yeah, I know. Nobody really knows how it's going to play out, my friends. They never do. But I could see where people would be skeptical of the Caleb Banks pick. And I think that my conversation with Mike Renner, he really painted a picture of why that would be, but he actually framed it in a different way. If you missed that one, about Caleb Banks actually having a higher floor than people think, as long as he could stay healthy. So there's as with everyone, like a wide range of opinions there. But I do want to bring you this discussion. I've teased it a bunch of times. You guys asked, I'm trying to deliver. Jauan Jennings, why was he available? And is he going to be good for the Vikings? I asked a friend of mine, Kyle Madsen, who is a talk host in Sacramento, but also covers the 49ers for a podcast and has written about them as well. So really good and fun conversation here about Jauan Jennings. And I'll bring you that, and then we'll talk to you soon. We'll kind of see how it plays out. I got some guests that I'm lining up this week. I'm trying to get another power ranker on to talk about maybe not having the Vikings very high. And then Thursday night is what I'm really excited about. One of my favorite shows of the year, Thursday night, when Manny picks the schedule for the first time. So thanks everybody for watching, and we'll catch you all very soon. Football. All right, we welcome back into the show to talk a little Jauan Jennings and find out why he's with the Vikings. It's such a darn reasonable price. Kyle Madsen, ESPN 1320 in Sacramento, and the Candlestick Chronicles podcast. Kyle, how you been, man? How's it going?
Doing great. Definitely not excited for this portion of the football calendar, where just not a lot is going on, except for Jauan Jennings signing. So that's been exciting.
Okay, so why don't you start with answering that question? If you look at the statistics from Jauan Jennings over his last 2 seasons, 132 catches, over 1,600 yards, 15 touchdowns, you can match that up with a lot of wide receiver 2s around the National Football League and stack them up, and Jauan Jennings looks pretty good. The normal wide receiver 2 in the NFL is making about $17 million per year, with T. Higgins being the high end of that market at almost 30. So why did the Minnesota Vikings have Jauan Jennings for $8 million with the top end of 13 if he hits his incentives?
Yeah, eight is a way lower number than I thought he was going to get. But my understanding is he had this like holdout with the 49ers last year where he had a calf thing, but then he wasn't coming back as soon as they wanted him to, and it turned into kind of a hold-in situation. And my understanding is he was asking for, after one season, because you mentioned his last 2 years, but he was a 2020 7th round pick. He was a bit player in the offense, like an effective player, but I think he had 19 catches one year, and then he had 40 another year. Well, in 2024, he got thrust into the wide receiver 1 role because of the Brandon Ayuk injury, and Deebo Samuel was in and out and just not very good. And Jauan Jennings was just kind of the guy, and got pushed into this bigger role. And had 975 yards, would have gotten 1,000, but he got ejected from the final game of the season and that's kind of what he does. And we can talk more about that later, but, felt just short of 1,000 yards, but was like, man, okay, Jauan's a really effective receiver. And then this year played through a bunch of injuries. At what point he had high and low ankle sprains, multiple broken ribs, and a shoulder injury, and he's playing through them. He's just kind of, that's just kind of how he is, but he wasn't as effective. But from what I understand, going into the last season, he was looking for 25 plus million a year from the 49ers. And yeah, your reaction was
yeah,
not.
what?
yeah. So that was like, okay, No, that's not going to be a thing. So I imagine what happened here, and I have a pretty good inkling that he just wanted way more than what a receiver that in a good offense, I think is probably your third wide receiver. In a great offense, he's probably four, but because he's not fast, he doesn't stretch the field vertically, but he's hard to tackle. He blocks his rear end off. Like he's really tough on contested catches. Like he's a good hard-nosed player, but I think for a lot of teams, he's probably wide receiver 3 or 4. And I think he was running out there in free agency as a 29-year-old, mind you, in free agency for the first time, going out looking for north of $20 million. And I just don't think a lot of teams were willing to pay that. And you get post-draft, and teams have filled out their needs, and the market dies.
So I've a couple of theories also to add on to that is
Please.
Number one, teams never, ever, ever let go of their draft evaluations. And if they didn't like Jauan Jennings coming out in the draft, I know that sounds silly when the guy has put up such big numbers and he's proven it. But if you go through the history of this, somebody studied it years ago, like first round picks will get the benefit of the doubt all day long in free agency and from their teams, even if they're the same exact player as an undrafted free agent or seventh rounder, and that the seventh rounder will get less. I also think that people believe, and this might be right, that Kyle Madsen and Matthew Coller could play wide receiver and maybe like number 2 tight end for the San Francisco 49ers, and we would get the absolute maximum out of our talents. So the question that other teams have to ask is, was that just Kyle Shanahan being Kyle Shanahan, and this offense just produces for anybody that they throw in there? And I don't think that that's a crazy notion for other teams to think when it comes to actually putting down the dollars and cents.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. But then also there's all these Kyle Shanahan disciples in the league right now, and teams running this Shanahan style offense, but looking at it and going, well, the 49ers weren't super eager to keep him. So what's going on there? What's wrong there? I kind of that was sort of my thought as well. Plus, like I said, he's 29. He's been banged up. He's not limited in what it, because like I said, the Niners used him like as a tight end, like as a move blocker. He's really, really good at that. The thing getting ejected in the game against the Cardinals, there weren't like punches thrown, but he just instigates and he talks a ton of trash, and he's gonna block to the whistle. He's gonna take guys into the second row, like that kind of thing. And he just did that on back-to-back plays, or twice within 3 plays, whatever it was. And these Cardinals DBs were getting really, really upset. And it got to the point that the refs are like, all right, we're done here. We're just going to nip this in the bud. Everybody's out. And I don't know that teams view that as like a positive. I don't know that teams view that as like oh, hey, here's a guy that might be a problem. And that's kind of, I think, plays into that as well. Again, not majorly, not the difference between him getting 25 million and 8 million. But I do think it's a factor when you're looking at, all right, do we want to sign Jalen Naylor or do we want to sign Jauan Jennings? Different players, but you get what I'm. I think it's easier to go with the guy who may not get ejected or talk a bunch of trash.
Yeah, and also like Trayvon Morig, got ejected for hitting him, and Shelby Harris had a post-game rant where he went on about how he was not just a trash talker, but kind of took it to a level that's a little disturbing. Now, the thing about it from a Vikings perspective is that Jalen Naylor is a really good wide receiver, and I think people are going to find that out in Las Vegas. But there's not a lot of grit there. There's not a lot of toughness element and violence. In fact, you could kind of say that for the Minnesota Vikings as an offense, where it's been a team that you're not afraid to run on, that's going to run you over. The only person that you're really like, man, we could get manhandled by this guy is Josh Oliver, their number 2 tight end. And maybe they throw in the fullback from time to time, but he was used as more of a pass blocker. Like, this team is lacking in that toughness that San Francisco is kind of famous for having on offense. Like if you come out of a San Francisco game, you're going to have a lot of bruises. It's just not the case for the Vikings. I feel like that's a good fit, even if the guy is a perpetual line stepper.
Yeah, man. I love the fit for Jauan in Minnesota. I think that's a great spot for him. He can be a third receiver, and up to second, depending on if Jordan Addison is out or if Justin Jefferson's out, like I think Jauan fits very nicely into that 2-3 wide receiver role in that offense. And he does bring that toughness element. He brings it every single game. Even if he was hurt, he's still out doing that. He's playing through it. Even if he and Kyle Shanahan getting a spat on the sideline, he's going to go out and he's going to play his rear end off when he does go play. So I think there's value in that. And I think it's a great fit. $8 million is really affordable. I think if Jauan had asked for 8 from the 49ers, he'd still be wearing a Niner uniform right now. But I love the fit for him in Minnesota specifically because I don't think that's an offense that's going to be like, hey, we need you to be wide receiver 1, because I think that's starting to kind of stretch his abilities a little bit. But when he's a third wide receiver and you need him to block and you need him to make some tough third down catches, you're in the nickname Third and Jauan, go-to guy on third downs, can break tackles and create some yak. He's going to be a really good fit in that way.
Yeah, let's go into even more detail on that, but because the more numbers that I dig up on Jauan Jennings, the more I'm like, yep, this is really what they need, because his usage has kind of been all over the place. He's had to play outside wide receiver. He's had to play slot receiver predominantly in different seasons. And that is very useful for the Vikings because they, wide receivers over the years have told me the hardest part of the offense is the number of formations and the number of locations that I have to line up. But with coming from Kyle Shanahan, that's absolutely nothing new for Jauan Jennings. I also think that the separation issue with long speed or whatever it might be, I don't know how much the Vikings need a separation guy when you have 2 of the best separation guys in the NFL, and so much attention is going to be on Justin Jefferson. But how would you characterize it? Like, is this sort of is it like a big possession type of wide receiver? Like, detail me on kind of what it looks like.
Yeah, it's so, he's such a unique player because he is a possession receiver for sure. He had a long touchdown this year against the Saints. I think it was like a 75-yard touchdown against the Saints, but it was on like a deep inbreaker where they just, I don't know if they blew coverage or if the Niners just had the right play call. And he ran away from the defensive back, but you're never going to get, Jauan Jennings confused for a burner. Like I think he ran a 4.7 40 and it looks like that, but really good with the ball in his hands in terms of breaking tackles. There's this really famous play against the Seahawks in 2022, I think, where he catches a ball. It was like a 3rd and 5, and he caught it like 3 yards shy of the line to gain with 3 defenders around him and just kept breaking tackles. It was like a big brother playing with his 3 little brothers and just got enough for the first down. And it's like, that's the kind of play, like we say dog a lot. That guy's got that dog in him a lot, but like he does. That is his number one attribute is contested catch. Is he going to create a ton of separation? No, but he's going to put his body on the line to make a contested catch. He might run away from somebody. He's going to break some tackles. He's going to figure out a way to get that first down. He's going to figure out a way to get across the goal line. He just kind of does the little things that I think really round out a really good receiver room in Minnesota.
So are 49ers fans, how would you describe the emotion of them seeing him sign for $8 million?
I don't fully know. There wasn't like this outpouring of like, oh my God, because Niner fans are very much like teetering with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch at all times. Because they've reached that point of having success, but like not quite enough. that you're starting to see. So there wasn't, it feels like every time the Niners do something the fans don't like, there's a meltdown. And I didn't see any meltdowns over Jauan Jennings. I think people were just kind of over it after his hold-in last year, him asking for a ton of money and not getting it. He got some added incentives and went on his way. But I think people kind of knew that the ship had sailed. John Lynch made no bones about it at owners' meetings. He got asked about Jauan Jennings potentially returning, and he was like, Jauan's going to play really good football somewhere else. So I think there was just a collective agreement that, okay, he's probably gone. It was a 7th round pick. He shouldn't have the size of he shouldn't have as big of a role in the offense as he does. They signed Mike Evans, who does Jauan Jennings stuff way better than Jauan Jennings. They drafted Dejon Stribling, who might just be fast Jauan Jennings. Um, I think they did enough to Ricky Pearsall, first round pick. They signed Christian Kirk. I think they did enough in the receiver room this year that people understood, like, okay, ship sailed with Jauan. He's 29. They've replaced him adequately. Fine, good luck. But I don't think there's animosity. I don't think people hate Jauan Jennings.
Yeah, we were. I was live streaming when it happened. So the first thing that we did was just go to Reddit and see what like 49ers fans were saying. Yeah, like, well, what's the best way to get an instant reaction from the San Francisco side? Because the thing that you always have concern about is every team that signs a player and gets a great deal. It's like, this is the best deal ever. Every other team is so dumb. But with Jennings, I think that there is something that the Vikings have where they tend to attract players that want an opportunity to kind of show the world something. And this is also Kyler Murray, where Jennings might have the best chance to get his next contract by coming to Minnesota and succeeding there. And one thing that you said that is important is how often he's had to play up a slot, where if you take most wide receiver 3s in the NFL and tell them to be wide receiver 2, it's just a different story. The offense looks completely different, but not in the case with Jauan Jennings because he's done it so much. So I do want to ask you about the 49ers. I've been doing a thing with the trying to power rank the NFC specifically. Like, this is my new bit because I can't stand power rankings, but I thought, well, why don't I give it a try and see if I can do it better, right? Because it drives me nuts.
I can't stand power rankings unless I do it.
Well, the problem with power rankings is that they end up just being the standings, and that frustrates me. It's like Kansas City gets the benefit of the doubt, and then the rest is the standings, and like that's power rankings. But so I'm trying to do it differently. And when I did my first version of the NFC, I ended up with Rams, Seahawks, and 49ers third. So then I went to the old betting markets here at FanDuel, and they have the third highest odds or best odds to win the NFC. The San Francisco 49ers currently plus 750 behind the Rams and the Seahawks, and just ahead of the Detroit Lions, who are getting a lot of credit for a potential bounce back. Do you feel like, and it swings back and forth, like sometimes the local market could be the hardest people ever on the team, which it sounds like that's happening a bit in San Francisco, where everyone else loves San Francisco and you guys are like, come on, win something. But is that a good place for them to be? Like, do you think that they're the third best team in the NFC, or have they drifted a little bit since last year? Like, where would you put them?
They definitely might be. No, you're welcome. Yeah, man. Like, so I think they have that ceiling for sure. I think their ceiling is that they're the best team in the NFC. I don't know that see, the thing is, I have questions about the 49ers, but I think there's question marks about Philly. I think there's question marks about Detroit. There's question marks with Chicago. And we just watched the 49ers, as banged up as they were, win 12 games. Granted, very soft schedule, but they still won 12 games. And so I think they get a little bit of benefit of the doubt, which I think is fair. I think they've earned that. But they could certainly be there. One, I need to see them stay healthy, but that's baked in for every team. I need to see what their pass rush looks like with Nick Bosa and Mykel Williams both coming off ACL tears. They drafted Romello Height in the third round. I think is fine as like a situational pass rusher. I think that's fine. They have Keon White, who they traded for at the deadline last year with the Patriots, who had some nice moments. They need to figure out their defensive line though, and their pass rush. It was just so abominable last year, and with that, you saw the secondary struggle. With Fred Warner out, their entire defense struggled. He's just a supercomputer in the middle of that defense that kind of directs everything. They bring back Dre Greenlaw. That's really interesting. How much does he have left in the tank? He was injured for a bunch of last year. But if he's the player he was 2 years ago, like, hey, that's a really good second level. Like, I can talk myself into it, but it's also very easy to talk myself out of it. So I think for now, giving them the benefit of the doubt and putting them behind the Seahawks and Rams, I think they're certainly behind those two teams. The Seahawks and Rams are kind of in a tier by themselves for me for now. But I don't hate putting them third. It wouldn't surprise me if they represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. It wouldn't surprise me if they miss the playoffs because, hey, you know what? They relied on a bunch of young guys who weren't as good as they hoped.
If they had like the 14th best coach in the league, this team wins like 8 games, right? 7 games.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. So how much can you just give benefit of the doubt to Kyle Shanahan? And previously the answer has been a lot like that.
Yeah,
and if you make that bet, you often win. Where is the universe on Brock Purdy? Because I've had this theory for a long time that if everyone debates your quarterback a ton, it means your quarterback's just playing probably awesome and wasn't drafted as high as some people wanted him to be. And that's Brock Purdy with Kyle Shanahan. Because if he wasn't drafted high and the draft nicks didn't see it coming, then it has to be a product of the system. It has to be a small sample size. The guy's got to be a fraud because I didn't like him in the draft. But with Brock Purdy, from my perspective, there's something special there. And I saw him play against Flores defense in 2024. And even though the 49ers lost that game, he did things in that game, anticipation throws, reads, accuracy, playmaking. I was like, man, this guy is a lot tougher than people make him out to seem because he isn't 6'4" and, 230 pounds. But where do you think the universe has sort of settled on Brock Purdy as a franchise quarterback?
It's funny. You mentioned that game, and I'm going to answer your question, I promise. But that 2024 game, that's the game that got Steve Wilkes fired because they ran the zero blitz at the end of the half, and Jordan Addison caught the touchdown against Travarius Ward, and just nightmare, right? Jake Moody missed a field goal early in that game, and did Christian McCaffrey fumble too?
So you're thinking of 2023, but yes, yeah.
Oh, that's a 23 game, right?
They played in both years, yeah, and both times Purdy did a lot of great stuff.
The 99-yard touchdown.
Yep,
that's right. Yep. Okay. But it's funny, those two games specifically, Brock had some bad turnovers in those games, particularly late in the 2023 game. And then he had a bad fumble in the 24 game. But overall, played really well. The 49ers had other issues outside of Brock that they lost those games, but his turnovers get highlighted. And I know that's the nature of the position. It's the nature of the sport. I think Brock Purdy is really good. He's very, very good. Now, this is where I think the analysis of quarterbacks jumps the shark a little bit, because for me, it's like, hey man, does that team have a quarterback that can elevate their offense and win them a Super Bowl? And I think he can. I think we always saw him beat the Chiefs. They were a play or two away twice from winning a Super Bowl against Kansas City in 2023. I also think though that people try. The big thing is Justin Herbert, right? He's the one I always go to. Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence, because again, top 5 picks, big, tall, fast, rocket arms, the works, right? But when they don't play well, or they don't advance in the playoffs, or do the things that we typically associate with a good quarterback doing, it's like, oh, well, the coach isn't good enough. Oh, the weapons aren't good enough. Oh, the defense isn't good enough. And it's like, okay, that's fine. I totally get it. A quarterback can't do it by himself. But if you're going to tell me that those guys need those things, then you can't knock Brock Purdy for having those things. I can't square that circle. If Justin Herbert was on the 49ers, would the 49ers be better than they are? Yeah, maybe, but we don't need to know that, because I don't care. They have Brock Purdy. So all of that is to say, I think Brock Purdy is really good. I think 49er fans have come around to Brock Purdy being good. I think there's always going to be some skepticism because of what you talked about earlier with people and teams sticking to their pre-draft evals. I think that's always going to be something that lingers with him, but they can win a Super Bowl with him. And does that remain the case when the roster is not very good? Yep, probably not. But that's also the case for 29 other quarterbacks in the league, maybe 28, depending on how you feel about Patrick Mahomes. So, yeah, man, he's good. They can win a Super Bowl with him. Of all the problems they have roster wise, he is way down the list.
So just with quarterback dialogue in general, this even goes back to Troy Aikman and Joe Montana, where there will be people who say, well, the only reason Troy Aikman won those Super Bowls because he was with such a great team. He wasn't actually that great. I don't know, man. I grew up in Buffalo and watched him be pretty darn great in some Super Bowls. And Joe Montana, well, he had Rice and Bill Walsh. What do you want him to issue an apology? I mean, it's sort of the same thing with the Draymond Green thing that I see out there. It's like, well, if Draymond played for the Charlotte Bobcats, he wouldn't have been as good. What do you want him to say? Sorry for winning the championships and benefiting from playing on a great team? This isn't, these alternate realities are just that. Like, they are not reality. And under these circumstances, and I also think too that every single quarterback who succeeds also has circumstances play into it. Oh, are we not going to mention that Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and Andy Reid were there for Kansas City and that Mahomes arrived just when the passing environment was exploding and teams were totally lost on, deep play action shots for a couple years there, and there were no fans in the stands when he had, one of his great seasons. Like, every single quarterback, every single situation goes along with a bunch of context to have success. That's why we see Kurt Warner be greatest show on turf, terrible with the New York Giants, go back to the Super Bowl with Arizona, because they're not playing by themselves out there. It's not golf and tennis. So sorry, Brock Purdy is in the perfect situation with the offense. Like, what is he supposed to do? But the question is always, to me, can you win a Super Bowl with that quarterback? And also, can you win a Super Bowl with that quarterback on his contract? And that's where I think it does get dicey, because now the draft nicks and their draft grades, they don't ever really matter. But it has been shown, if you keep going against the consensus board a million times, I'm sure that discussion's gotten old with you guys, but if you do it, but if you do it enough, it's risky. People act like if you do it, you should be taken out in the street and shot, but like, that's not how it works. It just means it's riskier if you overdraft someone versus what the world thought you were going to do. And they have not crushed the draft year after year after year under this administration. So I think that they are in a place where they should fear falling into what I call Kirkland. Kirkland is expensive quarterback who's very, very good. But if your team makes any mistakes, you're probably not getting there.
Yeah, that's sort of exactly where I think they are. And yeah, I don't want to do the consensus big board thing. The 49ers have not drafted well. They typically don't draft with the consensus big board. That doesn't bode well for this year's class. But if Kalen Black is an all-pro, and if Grayson Halton and Romello Height are amazing, and if Dejon Stribling is Anquan Bolden, then they're fine, right? Like, but again, we don't know. It does put you in a very, very tough spot, because they're still riding on, like, they're riding the wave of the 2017, 2018, and 2019 drafts still. And trades they got Trent Williams for a bargain in 2020, right after Joe Staley retired. And then they got Christian McCaffrey in a trade with the Panthers. And that's like buoying them right now. It's been a big topic of discussion. The last all-pro they drafted was Talanoa Hufanga in 2021, who, if we're keeping it a stack, his all-pro season was at best. And then they let him walk. He's not on the team anymore. He left in free agency after an he was an all-pro in his second year. So he leaves in free agency. Brock Purdy made a Pro Bowl. Beyond that, they have not drafted a Pro Bowler or an all-pro since Talanoa Hufanga. And Brock Purdy was their last Pro Bowl. Like, that's a problem. That's a very, very serious problem. Whether you have an expensive quarterback or not, but the idea of having an expensive quarterback is, well, you got to supplement them with rookie contracts and good players on rookie deals. And they haven't done that at any point. And so they're relying on a 30-year-old Christian McCaffrey and a 33-year-old George Kittle who's coming off a torn Achilles and a 38-year-old Trent Williams. Is like, dude, this is not sustainable in the modern NFL. At some point, you got to start hitting some picks. And whether they hit picks or not is going to determine the outcome of their next, 3 or 4 years.
I feel like you just talked me into bumping them down from 3, but the problem is I don't know who to put at 3. I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Yeah.
So, Kyle, let me ask you one more question, which is, the Vikings with Kyler Murray. You would have seen a lot of Kyler Murray having been in the division for a long time. You think it's going to work? You think it's going to work, Kyler Murray as Vikings quarterback?
I'm out. No, I don't see. I am a very, very firm believer in Kevin O'Connell. If there's anybody pounding the drum for Kevin O'Connell on the West Coast, it's your boy. I think he is a phenomenal football coach who's going to take whatever Kyler's good at and maximize what Kyler's good at. The problem is I don't know what Kyler's good at that isn't, because he's obviously great running. And he's so different and unique as a runner that I think he's just really hard to game plan for. But the 49ers have had the most success against him when they're like, hey, we're not even gonna try and get to the quarterback. We're just gonna keep you in the pocket. And then you're either gonna run into a sack or you're not gonna be able to be effective throwing the football. But on the other hand, like, man, he figures out a way to make plays, and he's really dangerous and scary. And if you're gonna tell me that you're gonna give a guy with that level of talent to Kevin O'Connell, that could get scary for the league. So I think it's the best environment that Kyler's ever been in, the best situation he's ever been in. If he can't get it done now, then I don't think it's ever going to happen. I'm not writing Minnesota off by any means, but I am a little skeptical because I don't know exactly what a great the best version of Kyler Murray looks like yet. But I think if we're going to get it, we're going to get it this year.
Right. I mean, the best versions have been 2024. He was better than people think. And because no one cares to watch that season, right, and they were like rebuilding and so forth, but that was with a bad team. And Marvin Harrison Jr., I can't believe what I'm watching when I watch the tape back. I mean, it's just like this was the generational. We just banned the word generational after that. Like, there's nothing about that. It's not generational bust, but it's pretty rough. Heck, the San Francisco game, the first San Francisco game last year when Kyler plays, there's a couple balls that hit him right in the face that if they don't, the Cardinals probably win the game. And they kind of gave it away because of Marvin Harrison. So Justin Jefferson that's not him. No. And when he had DeAndre Hopkins, he has a coach who's calling a college offense. And people just figured it out halfway through the season and it was fine. So it is so different that it is very, very hard to project for us or anybody else, which will make it interesting. So I don't know how it's going to go.
I love the ceiling.
Yeah.
And given that Minnesota won 9 games last year?
Yeah.
They finished 9-8?
Yep.
9 games with whatever the hell was going on at quarterback last year. Like I'm optimistic about the Vikings for sure.
Well, I have to cross-check whether I'm crazy when I'm talking about this stuff because the betting markets don't love the Vikings. The power rankers don't love the Vikings. And I'm like, I'm having trouble seeing why they wouldn't be better when they ranked 28th last year in passing EPA, and they won't with Kyler for sure.
So that's a great point. Whatever you're going to get out of Kyler is going to be better than what they got last year. I think by a significant amount. Whether the offense looks different or whether it's Kyler just scrambling and ad-libbing, it's something like it's going to work better than what they had.
Not to mention that they had to play 2 games overseas last year. They have 9 home games this year. No one ever factors this in. Like now there's 9 home games and 8 away games, right? So yeah, I know. What am I thinking? Why would we talk context with Brock Purdy and Kyler Murray when we could just be like, they're the 20th best quarterback? That's my ranking.
No rings.
Yeah, no rings.
No rings. They suck.
Kyle, always a great pleasure to get together with you, my friend. I appreciate you doing it. And hopefully we have a reason to do it again very soon.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Shout out to Minnesota. My podcast partners with Lamb Chops, a Minnesota-based clothing company. It's partnered with the Timberwolves. Love those guys. And I'm a big Minnesota guy. I've never actually been. I want to go. But I love the Timberwolves, love Anthony Edwards, and I'm pulling for them. So salute to Minnesota.
Might I suggest a visit in the summertime? That would be.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard.
Hot take. We'll finish with a hot take.
I still got to get out to Target Field.
Summertime.
We'll go do that.
Thanks, Kyle.